Chapter 1344. It's already rumored outside. The emperor's joy was palpable, and he showered the crown prince with lavish praise and a plethora of rewards. The crown prince, known for his generosity, held Xiao Yunduan and Qiao Xian's contributions in high regard. Moreover, with everyone heaping praises on Princess Consort, he couldn't have been happier since applauding her was akin to praising himself. Additionally, the rumors had already circulated beyond the palace, leaving him with no choice but to embrace the story and not embarrass his princess consort. This only deepened his sense of guilt. His heart ached for Xiao Yunduan and Qiao Xian, especially when he witnessed Xiao Yunduan's tireless dedication to his service without a single complaint. The crown prince felt compelled to offer some consolation. Although Princess Consort had rewarded Qiao Xian, he decided to grant Xiao Yunduan something unique. The gifts included a golden jade rui, 2 brand new books, 100 sheets of tribute paper, 2 finely crafted intermediate brushes, an ink stone, a pair of ink ingots, a brush pot, 2 scrolls bearing famous calligraphy, a pair of folding fans masterfully drawn by renowned artists from a previous dynasty, 6 exquisite jade pendants, and a pair of elegant jade thumb rings. These items from the East Palace were of the highest quality and in the eyes of scholars, were truly priceless treasures. The crown prince's choice reflected his understanding of Xiao Yunduan's interests. Qiao Xian couldn't help but imagine how delighted she would be if someone like Qiao Hongxi received such gifts. Her husband might not go mad, but he would undoubtedly adore her. With her own reward in hand, it was now her turn to express her gratitude. In the afternoon, Qiao Xian dressed up and, accompanied by Qiao, headed to the East Palace to convey her thanks. The previous day, Auntie Liang had already returned to the East Palace to report to Princess Consort. Upon learning that Qiao Xian had yet to awaken, Princess Consort's irritation flared, and she turned to Auntie Fu, exclaiming, "Is she holding something against me or what?" Princess Consort remained entirely unconvinced by the excuse of sickness. It was true that she had claimed most of the credit from Qiao Xian, whether by taking the initiative or through Qiao Xian's consent. She couldn't help but harbor a hint of guilt, suspecting that Qiao Xian's sickness was merely a ploy to express her discontent. Auntie Fu offered a reassuring smile. "Princess Consort, you might be overthinking this. Miss Qiao isn't a native of the capital, and she lacks guidance from an experienced elder. How could she be expected to know all the rules?" Auntie Fu acknowledged Qiao Xian's significant contribution, and she anticipated that the East Palace would certainly reward her. If Qiao Xian had been aware of the unwritten rules among the capital's officials, she would have likely expected to receive these rewards within a few days following the banquet, rendering her morning slumber unusual. However, Qiao Xian was unfamiliar with the unspoken rules of the capital's aristocracy. Nonetheless, Princess Consort made a mental note. Considering Qiao Xian's background, Princess Consort sneered and remarked, "You're right, I hope that's the case. Otherwise it would be perceived as arrogance on Qiao Xian's part." Auntie Fu concurred, saying, "Indeed, that must be the case. I have a keen sense of character. Madame Xiao doesn't strike me as a frivolous person, so it's essential for her to understand what's expected. I'll inquire about it later. If she truly lacks this knowledge, we should educate her, or Lord Xiao's reputation might suffer in the future." Princess Consort, somewhat reassured by Auntie Fu's earnest words, nodded and instructed, "Please do go and speak with her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1345. She really didn't know. Auntie Fu nodded with a warm smile. "If that's the case, I'll take it upon myself to instruct her." Princess Consort didn't believe Auntie Fu needed to personally undertake the task, but since Auntie Fu was willing, she acquiesced with a nod. Upon learning that Qiao Xian had arrived to greet her, Auntie Fu addressed her with a pleasant smile, saying, "Madame Xiao, how polite of you to come. There must have been some misunderstanding yesterday." Princess Consort responded with a smile, "You're standing up for her." Auntie Fu's heart skipped a beat and she smiled, saying, "I'm merely speaking on her behalf, considering she lacks guidance from her elders and is unfamiliar with the customs. Ultimately, it's all for your and the crown prince's benefit." Princess Consort chuckled, saying, "I appreciate your kindness." As the maid ushered Qiao Xian in, the two ceased their conversation. Qiao Xian approached and greeted Princess Consort. As she observed Qiao Xian, Princess Consort's heart softened, recognizing that both of them had made significant contributions to the East Palace. She found Qiao Xian rather appealing and sighed inwardly, offering her a friendly smile. Qiao Xian expressed her gratitude and took her seat. With little common ground to initiate a substantial conversation, they exchanged polite words of thanks. Princess Consort, accustomed to handling such situations, skillfully guided the conversation. As the Princess Consort, she received numerous visitors, many of whom she might not be personally acquainted with. It was her responsibility to steer the conversation, as no one dared to take the lead. Without her initiative, the atmosphere could become awkward. Qiao Xian responded to Princess Consort's prompts, and her ease in conversation seemed to please Princess Consort. After a short while, when Princess Consort raised her teacup, Qiao Xian recognized the cue that the visit was concluding. She rose and took her leave. Auntie Fu accompanied Qiao Xian to the garden and, with a warm smile, mentioned that the chrysanthemums were in bloom, suggesting that Qiao Xian should pick 2 pots for herself. Sensing that Auntie Fu likely had something to discuss, Qiao Xian complied. However, when Auntie Fu posed her question, Qiao Xian couldn't help but feel embarrassed. Honestly, she had been unaware of such a matter. It was quite the coincidence. Xiao Yunduan had intended to address this issue later in the evening. He had returned home and fallen asleep, leaving her waiting that night. But she couldn't hold off any longer. Qiao Xian felt a pang of guilt, unable to explain herself, especially when she recalled the reason she hadn't been able to inform Princess Consort of her discontent and the missed reward on the following day. Fortunately, Auntie Fu recognized that Qiao Xian lacked guidance in these matters. She proceeded to enlighten her on various unspoken rules and expressed her willingness to serve as her mentor. Qiao Xian naturally was delighted by this offer. Auntie Fu possessed impeccable manners and willingly shared her knowledge. They agreed that Auntie Fu would visit the Qiao family from time to offer instruction whenever she had free time. Qiao Xian expressed her gratitude and asked Auntie Fu to relay this information to Princess Consort, to which Auntie Fu agreed. Upon hearing this, Princess Consort finally released the lingering unpleasantness in her heart. It had already been arranged for them to accompany Prince of Qingdi on a hunting trip. In a couple of days, the 3rd prince, 4th prince and 2nd prince would join him, and officials from the East Palace would represent the Crown Prince, who needed to remain in the capital to attend to government affairs. Prince Nua, despite a prior altercation with Xiao Yunduan, held a fondness for him. When he learned that Xiao Yunduan wouldn't be accompanying him, he insisted on Xiao Yunduan's presence for the excursion. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1346, Preparing to Go South. Xiao Yunduan adamantly declined Prince Nua's invitation, citing his busy schedule, a lack of archery or equestrian skills, and his belief that his presence would be of little use on a hunting expedition. Had it not been for Xiao Yunduan and Qiao Xian's plans to spend the new year in Jiangnan, the Crown Prince might have accepted the invitation on Xiao Yunduan's behalf. However, it was clear that their New Year's expenses took precedence, so the Crown Prince sided with Xiao Yunduan's decision and reassured Prince Nua. Prince Nua, a peculiar character, didn't take offense at Xiao Yunduan's refusal. In fact, he admired him even more. After all, not everyone had the courage to decline his invitation, as many sought opportunities to curry favor with him. Rather than face potential disapproval from the Crown Prince, his superiors and others for rejecting Prince Nua, he proactively spoke in Xiao Yunduan's favor. He offered to share a drink when time allowed, as he would be stationed in the capital for an extended period, departing only after the next spring. Xiao Yunduan found himself at a loss. He had no desire to share a drink with this man. The group journeyed to a royal hunting ground over 200 kilometers from the capital. The officials and guards responsible for their reception in the capital breathed a collective sigh of relief as they departed. Finally, they could enjoy some rest and respite. The Crown Prince had already made the necessary arrangements. In the following days, Xiao Yunduan would travel to the south, inspecting the canals in Jiangnan for approximately 30 days. As soon as the official ship was ready, they would embark on their journey without any concerns. Sun Bai and Sun Qian continued to lead more than 10 guards from the Eastern Palace who accompanied them. Before leaving the capital, Qiao Xian ensured that all her tasks were completed. This time, Qiao Xian brought Li Xia and Li Qiao with her while leaving Qing Yan and Songshi behind in the capital. The strawberry production had significantly decreased, prompting Qiao Xian to inform the manager of Jinquan restaurant that the supply would cease in approximately 10 days. Anyone desiring fresh strawberries would need to wait until late March or early April of the following year. Despite the strawberries benefiting from Qiao Xian's wood power, substantial variety improvements, and enhanced cold resistance, the capital still experienced a harsh winter. Without the protection of a greenhouse and proper care, safely navigating the winter remained a significant challenge for the strawberries. Preparations for winter were essential. The strawberries had to be pruned, leaving only the roots, and then they would be covered with thick straw to encourage growth in the spring. While the restaurant owner expressed regret, he understood that fruit growth depended on factors beyond anyone's control. It was a matter left to nature. He even prepared a gift for the Qiao family and requested Qiao Xian to sign a contract with Xiao Yunduan to ensure that the tea house would continue to receive strawberry supplies the following year. Qiao Xian amended the contract, stipulating that she would provide a minimum of 200 caddies per day when the quantity allowed. With Xiao Yunduan's status as a court official and a popular figure, the manager didn't dare to voice any objections. Qiao Xian's resolute stance left him reluctant to utter another word, fearing he might upset her. Fortunately, their working relationship had developed over time, and he understood that Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan were not motivated solely by greed. Given their initial commitment to him, they had no intention of abandoning the partnership. For him, this was already a favorable outcome. The concept of exclusivity was no longer a matter of concern. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1347, Potatoes. Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan arrived at the farm in Cloudwater Town. This time the entire estate was in decent shape. Its cleanliness and tidiness had begun to draw attention, leading to a few scenes of budding prosperity. Although the staff hadn't been hired in sufficient numbers yet, tenants had already signed occupancy agreements and begun moving in, one family at a time. Many of the households had chickens and dogs, and children played freely, infusing the area with a lively atmosphere. The main courtyard of the farm had been meticulously arranged, with all the furniture provided by Qiao Xian's contacts in the capital's furniture stores. They had chosen high-quality fir wood, ensuring exquisite craftsmanship and a smooth finish. After applying several layers of tung oil, the original wood's simple and elegant style was perfectly preserved. It was the ideal environment for them to settle down in the countryside. Qiao Xian carefully surveyed the progress. Half of the farms were already prepared, while the rest were still awaiting delivery. However, these orders had been placed and were set to arrive before the new year. They had also acquired oxen and donkeys, 25 oxen, 8 donkeys and 10 custom-made carts for transporting goods. Given the farm's proximity to the Northwest Pass, horses were not readily available from local sources, as their trade was regulated by the government. However, other livestock were easier to procure at reasonable prices. They continued their exploration of the plantation, eventually walking around. The cabbages and radishes had grown splendidly, displaying a lush and tender appearance, quite charming. Judging by their progress, it wouldn't be long before the radishes started producing stems, and the cabbages would begin to form heads. This timing was ideal for them to commence sales towards the end of November. Songsher was elated as he spoke. "Master, madam, you might not be aware, but our land is exceptionally fertile. The radishes and cabbages grown here are lush and vibrant, exuding strength and vigor. I took a look at the neighboring villages and none of their produce looks as good as ours. Once we put them on the market, they're bound to fetch excellent prices." Despite the fact that the sum of money earned might be considered insignificant by the master and madam, Songsher took immense pride in having earned it himself. Internally amused, Qiao Xian nodded and replied, "You must have taken good care of them. When we sell the vegetables, everyone will receive their fair share. Don't sell off all of them, make sure the families get a portion. They can use them during the winter." In the capital, nearly every cellar and pottery jar would be stocked with winter vegetables. After inspecting the estate, they packed their belongings and enjoyed a day of rest. The following day they boarded an official ship at the Tong State docks heading south. On the day before his departure, Xiao Yunduan visited the East Palace bearing a 3-tiered lunchbox filled with various potato dishes, potato pancakes and steamed potatoes. His intent was to brief the Crown Prince about the potatoes. The Crown Prince never accepted items from external sources without thorough scrutiny. Even though it was Xiao Yunduan, the eunuchs would meticulously inspect for poison and taste the food before presenting it to the Crown Prince. Fortunately, the Crown Prince trusted Xiao Yunduan, believing that the food he brought was not a mere offering but had a significant purpose. Thus he allowed its presentation. Had it been anyone else, they wouldn't have been given the chance to offer it to him. Xiao Yunduan detailed the specifics of the potatoes, and the Crown Prince grew increasingly focused as he listened. He even summoned his confidant from the Ministry of Revenue to listen in on the discussion. Together they tasted the potatoes. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1348, A Great Merit. It could be cooked and served as a staple food, boasting a pleasing taste and remarkable yield. What was this? It was nothing short of a divine blessing bestowed upon the people of Great Qin. The official from the Ministry of Revenue couldn't contain his skepticism and questioned Xiao Yunduan. Is it true? Is it genuinely this abundant? Can it truly thrive with minimal care? This seems unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. Xiao Yunduan led the Crown Prince and the others to his own land and proceeded to dig with a hoe. The Crown Prince, if he wished, could choose any plant he desired. However, it became evident that Xiao Yunduan had not been exaggerating. The potatoes were incredibly prolific. They dug up several stalks and filled a basket. This is incredible. This is remarkable. Congratulations, Crown Prince. Congratulations. This is a boon for Great Qin. Congratulations, Crown Prince. The Crown Prince was elated, his eyes sparkling with joy. He paid no mind to the dirt on his hands as he held a potato and meticulously cleaned off the surface mud. His touch was gentle, conveying a sense of comfort and happiness. Officer Xiao, you have rendered a significant service to Great Qin. Xiao Yunduan modestly replied, Crown Prince, you are too kind. I simply stumbled upon it. He recounted how he had encountered the potato while traveling to the capital for an exam. Along the way he had spotted someone enjoying it and, curious, had purchased some with his wife. Upon tasting it, they found it to be exceptionally delightful and bought the remaining stock. They planted some at home, which thrived remarkably. Surprisingly, when they planted them in the capital, the results were even better. It was clear that these potatoes were not finicky about their growing conditions. Harvest time was just around the corner. A couple of days ago, his wife had brought a few servants to harvest a batch. These potatoes stored well and could be consumed throughout the winter. Little did they anticipate that fields everywhere would yield such an abundance of elongated fruits. Upon reflection, she believed it would be wise to inform the Crown Prince of this discovery. However, she feared her explanation might not be adequate. Hence, she chose to prepare food made from potatoes and present it to the Crown Prince. This was the plan devised by Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan. Once they informed the Crown Prince about the potatoes, he would likely report it to the Emperor and send officials to manage the potato resources in the region. In such a scenario, Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan would have little say in the matter. Qiao Xian had intended to cultivate potatoes herself in the coming year, but if the potatoes were taken to the East Palace, they might end up in the hands of the Emperor or the Ministry of Revenue. In that case, how would she acquire the seeds? Hence, she decided to preemptively dig up an acre or two, estimating they would collect nearly enough seeds. They'd still have a surplus which should suffice. Upon hearing Xiao Yunduan's words, the Crown Prince suddenly realized something. With a smile, the Crown Prince remarked, Officer Xiao, your dedication to the Empire is truly commendable. I will report this to my father, and he will be delighted. Your Highness, I'm deeply grateful for your kindness. I can never repay you enough. It's my duty. The Crown Prince chuckled. Officer Xiao, you remain as modest as ever. Colleagues cast envious glances at Xiao Yunduan, convinced that he was incredibly fortunate and that he had stumbled upon a string of good fortune. They speculated that his promotion was imminent. As for the rewards, there was no doubt they would be exceedingly generous. Indeed, on the same day the Crown Prince dispatched a guard to oversee the garden. In accordance with Xiao Yunduan's request, the Crown Prince instructed that the strawberries in the garden were not to be tampered with. Everyone understood that Lord Xiao had a promising future ahead of him and was a prominent figure in the East Palace. Therefore, the Crown Prince made it clear that there should be no interference. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1349, Going to do private matters. Of course, the soldiers indulged in private foraging, and Xiao Yunduan and Qiao Xian were not inclined to be petty about it. As long as it didn't constitute sabotage, they adopted a nonchalant, indifferent attitude and allowed them to do as they pleased. If the water was too clear, there would be no fish. If one took things too seriously, it would not only trouble others but also oneself. As long as it didn't violate their principles or cross any boundaries, they brushed it off with ease. Xiao Yunduan had dropped a bombshell, and regardless of the potential trouble that 500 meters might cause, he headed south with Qiao Xian. The canal's waterway remained unobstructed. The boat traveled swiftly and afforded them plenty of leisure time. However, the season was quite cold, especially on the desolate river. When the wind blew, it felt even chillier. Most of the time they had to take refuge in the cabin. It was a rare period when no one disturbed them. They didn't make any stops along the way, except for docking at night to rest and replenish their supplies. They continued their journey straight to Hangzhou. Upon arriving in Hangzhou, Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan instructed the others to wait for them. The next day they took Li Xia, Li Qiao, Sun Bai and Sun Chen to Zhao Shu's mansion. While they had informed Zhao Shu that they would definitely visit before December, they hadn't specified the exact date. Zhao Shu's ties to his hometown made it hard for him to leave, and he often roamed around the Jiangnan region. Their timing didn't matter much. Even if he wasn't currently in Hangzhou, his subordinates could return within a day or two. Hangzhou's 100,000 acres of flower fields were their primary source of income. Unlike the matured mulberry garden, this venture was in its infancy and required constant monitoring and supervision. More than half of Zhao Shu's time in Jiangnan was spent in Hangzhou. Although they hadn't communicated their arrival in advance, they didn't expect Zhao Shu to be absent from Hangzhou. It turned out they had missed him. Aunt Qing and Uncle Qing were also present. The two of them were overjoyed to see Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan, warmly welcoming them into the room and engaging in lively conversation. However, when Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan inquired about Zhao Shu's whereabouts and expected return, Uncle Qing and Aunt Qing exchanged uneasy glances and began to speak hesitantly, as if they were still treading carefully. This left Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan puzzled. They exchanged glances and couldn't help but wonder. With a friendly smile, Qiao Xian remarked, "Young Master Zhao, if you're occupied with your own affairs and it's inconvenient to share the details, that's perfectly fine. We can take a look at the flower fields and review the financial records. Your absence won't pose any problem." Uncle Qing chimed in, "Indeed, Lord Xiao, Madam Xiao, there's no need to worry. The financial accounts have been prepared, and your dividends are ready. I have the authority to guide you through whatever you'd like to inspect. Everything is in order and we can accommodate your preferences. Our young master is indeed occupied and hasn't returned yet. We can't confirm when he'll be able to come back in the next few days. We apologize for any inconvenience. Yes, please forgive us, Lord Xiao and Madam Xiao. Our young master did mention his intention to travel to the capital to visit you both personally and discuss matters." Qiao Xian nodded with a gracious smile. "Very well, we will await his return. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1350, Marriage. Qiao Xian had a sudden realization that Zhao Shu was no longer a young man. If Madame Zheng were still alive, she might have already arranged a marriage for him, possibly even 2 years earlier. Shuexiu, hailing from the Jiangnan Mountains, was a striking beauty, and Zhao Shu, with his wealth and good looks, must have caught the attention of several families. It seemed likely that he had resolved his personal matters and was pursuing a romantic relationship. This assumption was further supported by Uncle Qing and Aunt Qing's cautious demeanor. Besides personal affairs, what else could be too delicate to discuss openly? Since Zhao Shu was absent, Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan didn't prolong their visit. They agreed to visit the flower fields the following day, bidding farewell for the time being. During their journey on the wagon, Xiao Xian nestled against Xiao Yunduan's shoulder and shared her conjectures. Xiao Yunduan found her reasoning sound and smiled. "You're absolutely right. It's about time for Zhao Shu to settle down. Isn't it?" Xiao Xian chuckled. "When he does get married, we'll have to give him a generous red envelope." Xiao Yunduan smiled and exchanged a glance with his enthusiastic wife. "Certainly." Xiao Xian continued speculating about what Zhao Shu's prospective partner might be like, pondering whether she would be beautiful, gentle, and so forth. She couldn't wait to meet her. Xiao Yunduan nodded thoughtfully and shared a few words with her. However, he had already made up his mind. Zhao Shu held significant wealth, and being relatively young without any close family or siblings, he might attract the attention of unscrupulous individuals. The perfume workshop essentially served as a means for his wife to generate income for the crown prince, and their relationship was profound, making them potential targets for those with malicious intentions. When he next saw Zhao Shu, he resolved to inquire discreetly and have Sun Qian and Sun Bai discreetly gather information about Zhao Shu's sweetheart. If her intentions were genuine and she truly wanted to marry him, he would offer his blessings without interference. However, if any deception or unfavorable character traits came to light, he might need to discreetly exercise some control. The following morning, after a hearty breakfast, they made their way to the flower field. The scene before them was already quite desolate and faded. Even the once vibrant flower fields had succumbed to the changing season. The plot where the lilies had thrived was now barren. The bulbs that had been harvested for daily consumption had been dug up. These lily bulbs could be stir-fried when fresh, used to make soups and porridge when dried, and even ground into powder for lily-flavored dishes. The earth appeared neatly turned over, awaiting the arrival of spring next year for replanting. Aside from this emptiness, some of the other plants also bore signs of dormancy. While some still retained their green color, it lacked the vigor seen in previous months. Sweet osmanthus, cloves, jasmine and other plants had grown notably taller. Their leaves were dense and verdant, hinting at the magnificent display of flowers they would produce when they blossomed. To ensure a more splendid bloom in the upcoming year, all the roses and monthly bloomers had been pruned. Only short 2 to 3 inch poles remained. Proper care and nurturing would commence when the weather warmed up in the next year. Qiao Xian gently channeled her wood elemental power, allowing it to permeate the flowers and trees, not to force growth, but to transform into her own energy. This subtle infusion aimed to fortify the plants for the winter months ahead, enabling them to thrive with renewed vitality in the following year. They would flourish once more. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1351, Looking at the Flower Field. Everything seemed to be in place except for the lilies. So, Qiao Xian approached Uncle Qing, expressing her desire to inspect the lily bulbs selected for seed propagation. Without delay, Uncle Qing led her to the designated area. All the chosen lily bulbs for seed were carefully buried in the sand. A dedicated gardener tended to them, adjusting the watering regimen based on the sand's moisture levels. Uncle Qing took a moment to explain to Qiao Xian the reason for this meticulous care. Qiao Xian nodded appreciatively, acknowledging that it was indeed the best approach, and Uncle Qing had done well in hiring the gardeners. With a focused concentration, Qiao Xian infused her superpower into the lily bulbs before heading to Zhao Shu's tea house to assist him. The tea house was situated along the mountainside, winding gracefully upwards, presenting a picturesque view. In an effort to conceal the perfume workshop, Zhao Shu and his team had put in great effort. The tea saplings planted there were 3-year-old seedlings, ready for harvest in the spring. Within a dedicated courtyard on the farm, the perfume workshop conducted the process of extracting essential oils from flower petals, adjusting their composition, and ultimately producing bottles of perfume. The operation was intricate and required meticulous attention. In Great Qin, finding someone skilled in the art of crafting spices and incense cakes was nearly impossible. Nevertheless, the underlying principles were similar and they could be learned. Presently they had become quite proficient in this craft. The stock of essential oils extracted earlier was nearly depleted. At month's end, the perfume workshop would temporarily cease operations, resuming in mid-spring of the following year. On the subsequent day, Uncle Qing didn't wait for Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan to seek him out. Instead, he arrived with the account book, requesting their assistance in reviewing the financial records. Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan had unwavering trust in Zhao Shu and his loyal servant, so reviewing the account book was merely a formality. After scrutinizing the income and expenses, they retained the primary account book for a closer examination and returned it to Uncle Qing the following day. For the year, a total of 2,268 bottles of perfume had been sold, resulting in earnings of 228,300 taels of silver. Following the agreed 40 to 60 split, Qiao Xian's share amounted to over 93,000 taels of silver. Uncle Qing presented them with notes and 2 beautifully crafted gift boxes, sharing that the young master had prepared them for Lord Xiao and Madame Xiao. The two of them extended their stay in Hangzhou for another 5 to 6 days, enjoying the city and its outskirts. The early winter season in Jiangnan offered a different kind of beauty, with colorful fallen leaves adorning the landscape, complementing the picturesque mountains and rivers. It held its own charm compared to the scented mountains near the capital. During their time in South, Qiao Xian purchased various specialties, including silk, embroidered items, fans, Longjing tea, smoked duck, winter bamboo shoots, lotus root powder, sweet osmanthus honey, and sweet osmanthus cakes. As for Zhao Shu's marriage, it appeared to be a complex matter, given his prolonged absence. With no further reason to linger, Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan made their way back to the capital. Despite Zhao Shu's insistence on giving Qiao Xian a 30% share of the profits, it was essential to remember that the mulberry garden had no direct connection to her. She had been assisting Zhao Shu in addressing the issue. They had already received a substantial sum, and taking more would be excessive. Any future offer from Zhao Shu could yield at most 100,000 taels, a figure Qiao Xian wouldn't seek to increase. Thus, there was no need for them to proceed to Yangzhou to inspect the mulberry garden, especially with the weather growing colder. It was time for them to return to the capital. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1352, Constraint. Xiao Yunduan's office had been bustling with activity in the lead-up to the new year. With Qingdi and the others around this year, it was anticipated that there would be even more commotion. Upon returning home, it was time for Qiao Xian to prepare the New Year's gifts. With the 90,000 taels of silver available for the mid-year trip, Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan deliberated on how much to allocate for the Crown Prince's New Year expenses. Qiao Xian suggested, "Let's offer the Crown Prince 50,000 taels of silver. That should be sufficient for the East Palace to celebrate the New Year, don't you think?" Xiao Yunduan paused and thought before responding, 50,000 is too much, 30,000 should suffice. Qiao Xian was taken aback by the lower amount. Xiao Yunduan gently squeezed her hand and chuckled, "Silly girl, the Crown Prince will manage without this money, but he will be short on funds. The imperial plantation under the East Palace is bound to receive some resources, and the Crown Prince will be rewarded handsomely for the tribute. Additionally, the Ministry of Internal Affairs allocates 5,000 taels of silver to the East Palace for the New Year annually. By providing an additional 30,000 taels, we can cover the expenses not just for the New Year but also for the entire Spring Festival. We shouldn't give too much at once. I'm concerned we'll need to prepare another sum of money after spring." As he spoke, Xiao Yunduan couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for the Crown Prince. While other princes received New Year's gifts without hesitation, the Crown Prince, due to his elevated position, couldn't partake in such luxuries. His peers were all prosperous and capable, but the Crown Prince was the sole exception, unable to afford much. Even on his own birthdays, he was cautious not to accept overly lavish gifts, fearing that it would reflect poorly on him, as he should understand the struggles of the common people. Yet the wealth his family possessed was largely a result of his wife's abilities. Perhaps, with his assistance as an official, it would make things easier for her. Nevertheless, Xiao Yunduan remained confident that even without him, his wife would excel in her endeavors. Xiao Yunduan wrestled with conflicting thoughts. Giving away the money might yield future benefits, or perhaps it wouldn't. This dilemma gnawed at him, leaving him feeling guilty each time it crossed his mind. Additionally, there was an old adage that struck him. Transitioning from frugality to extravagance was easy, but the reverse, from extravagance to frugality, was exceedingly challenging. People often failed to appreciate something received for free. The more they received, the less they cherished it. So, it seemed wise to present the funds sooner rather than later. This way, the East Palace would need to make thoughtful arrangements to have a good New Year, truly valuing the silver's worth. Furthermore, Princess Consort had orchestrated the New Year celebrations, and Xiao Yunduan was determined to ensure she didn't pass the season without a care. Qiao Xian hadn't given it much thought initially, but Xiao Yunduan's reasoning resonated with her. She smiled and agreed, "Very well, I will provide 30,000 taels of silver. We have ample funds and we haven't even touched what Yuezhing Xiao owes us. When combined with that substantial sum, it should exceed 1,000,000 taels of silver." She paused, a mischievous glint in her eye. "I've been contemplating how to spend such a fortune. Unfortunately, we haven't come across suitable business opportunities or cooperative candidates recently." Her eagerness for involvement and success was evident, and she yearned to retire from work. Xiao Yunduan was taken aback, gazing at Qiao Xian with a puzzled expression. Observing his reaction, Qiao Xian burst into laughter and proclaimed proudly, "This is just the liquid cash we can access immediately. We still possess numerous properties, gold, silver, jewelry, antiques, and property deeds. And most importantly, her space holds even more treasures. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1353. This is the foundation of her establishment. Precious herbs like ginseng, Ganoderma lucidum, Chinese fleeceflower root, false starworts, precious orchids, peonies, plum blossoms, and valuable trees including rosewood, golden-threaded nanmu and golden star rosewood thrived abundantly. Other medicinal herbs, flowers, trees, and orchards flourished as well. The branches bore numerous fruits, some of which Qiao Xian had stored in the storage compartment, while others remained accessible for plucking and consumption. The blossoms and fruits on the trees were a breathtaking sight. The fertile land within the space had expanded to approximately 1,700 mu. Unaffected by climate changes, it proved suitable for the growth of various plants year-round. A wide variety of crops flourished consecutively. Rice, wheat, corn, peanuts, potatoes, and soybeans were among them. Qiao Xian surmised that the fertile fields in her space wouldn't expand indefinitely, yet they continued to slowly grow. The exact limits remained uncertain. Nonetheless, the more it expanded, the better. This served as the bedrock of her foundation. As long as her space endured and her wood-type superpower remained intact, silver held little significance to her. It was a privilege to assist her husband, support the crown prince, and savor the freedom of life, all while deterring anyone who might dare to provoke her easily. Xiao Yunduan found himself torn between laughter and exasperation at her words. He offered a reminder: keep the banknotes secure and don't disclose this to anyone else. Finding a dependable partner isn't as simple as it sounds. Brother Yuejing and young Master Zhao are truly exceptional. Qiao Xian nodded with understanding. Of course, I'm aware that finding the right partners depends on fate, and it'll take my time in the search. Hearing her response, Xiao Yunduan felt reassured. By late November, the two of them had returned to the capital. Indeed, the capital was on the brink of upheaval due to the potatoes. The crown prince brimmed with excitement as he deliberated with his advisors and trusted aides throughout the night. The following day, he hurried into the palace with a basket of potatoes, seeking an audience with his father, the emperor. The emperor's schedule was consistently occupied, divided between creating elixirs and practicing qi. Consequently, anyone seeking an audience with him had to wait until he became available. This protocol applied not only to the crown prince but also to the queen and his cherished honored Princess Mei. The pursuit of longevity was an endeavor that no one could obstruct. Historically, when the crown prince requested an audience and found the emperor unavailable, he would respectfully kowtow outside the palace and depart. Unless the matter at hand was exceedingly crucial, waiting was not typically practiced. However, this time the crown prince chose to wait. Whenever the crown prince appeared in court, the queen, honored Princess Mei, and Princess Concubine Virtue would scrutinize him closely. It was one thing if he simply knelt outside the palace without meeting the emperor. However, by waiting to see the emperor, the palace residents would keep a vigilant eye on him, eager to discern the nature of his discussion with the emperor. This was the consequence of the crown prince not having a biological mother. Without his mother's support within the palace, his options were limited. Without a maternal presence, which of the minor concubines in the harem would dare to risk the empress and noble consort's retribution by forming an alliance with him and becoming his confidant? As the crown prince crouched outside the Qianqiu palace, Empress Qi and the others grew increasingly puzzled. Had something significant occurred recently that they were unaware of? Why were they not informed? If there was no pressing matter, why was the crown prince stationed here? Empress Qi and her cohorts recognized the need to pay closer attention to this matter. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1354. If I want to, nothing can hide from him. After concluding his meditation, the emperor was in the process of attending to his personal matters when he learned that the crown prince was awaiting an audience outside. Consequently, he instructed someone to usher the crown prince in. While he may have been disinterested in the intricacies of governance, it didn't imply that he was indifferent to everything. In fact, he maintained a firm grip on military power. The key figures within the imperial army were his trusted confidants, and the ministers overseeing the 6 ministries were often at odds with each other. Additionally, control over the capital's defense lay in the hands of his loyal aides. As for significant military and political matters within the intermediate court, he had individuals who would report to him when he had the time. A shadowy cadre of guards, shrouded in secrecy and anonymity, was under his command. He had little inclination to monitor the activities of the princes, a task he deemed beneath his concern. His knowledge was instinctual. If he wanted to learn more, nothing could evade his awareness. The Crown Prince entered the pavilion with a basket of potatoes and greeted the Emperor respectfully. The Emperor, unbothered by customary protocol, had just completed his meditation, leaving him feeling a tad stiff. He lounged against the bed in a loose Taoist robe, his hair tied up with a sandalwood hairpin, cascading down his back. He bore little resemblance to a monarch of a nation. Waving his hand dismissively, he instructed the Crown Prince to rise and promptly noticed the basket at his side. His eyes narrowed with curiosity. "What have you brought? It seems unfamiliar to me." "Father, I only came across this item yesterday. It's called a potato and it's quite extraordinary." Seated, the Crown Prince elaborated on the details, sharing his findings and observations with a smile. The Emperor, equally intrigued, directed a young eunuch to examine the potatoes more closely and prepare several dishes for sampling. He couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement and mild skepticism. "You've never deceived me before and I trust you, but can these potatoes truly be so bountiful? I have my doubts." "Wisdom indeed resides with Father." The Crown Prince beamed and continued, "Initially I shared your skepticism. However, I personally visited the field and randomly selected a few plants. We immediately unearthed them and I must say they exceeded my expectations." "It's true. This small basket of potatoes originated from just one plant. Father, they are remarkably high-yielding." The Emperor beamed with joy, his eyes burning with enthusiasm as he declared, "If that's the case, it will be a boon for the great Qin Empire, a blessing for me." "I share your sentiments." Clearly in high spirits, the Emperor continued, "In that case, stay for lunch today. When the potatoes are served, enjoy them with me." The Crown Prince was elated and respectfully accepted the invitation. It was truly heartwarming. It had been a considerable while since the father and son had dined together and discussed family matters that didn't revolve around military affairs. Before long, lunch was served. Despite his dedication to cultivation, where Taoists refrained from consuming meat and fish, and the Emperor's preference for mostly vegetarian fare, these vegetarian dishes were crafted with extraordinary care. Take for instance the stewed tofu. The broth used for simmering the tofu wasn't just any ordinary soup. It was concocted from a blend of fresh crucian carp, dried shellfish, jade pillars, top-tier abalone, rare wild mushrooms, well-fed old hens, pig bones, and other exquisite ingredients. Following a series of meticulous steps, it was refined into a luxurious broth resembling milk. This premium broth was then added to a casserole and simmered gently over a small wind stove to render the tofu tender and imbued with the delectable essence. To complete the dish, the tofu and broth were ladled into a bowl, garnished with a sprinkling of finely chopped green onions. It appeared deceptively simple, but few would guess the laborious effort required to craft such an unassuming bowl of stewed tofu. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1355. Delighted. The Emperor's morning meal had already been arranged, with 12 dishes and a soup laid out. Additionally, there were stir-fried potato shreds, beef roasted potato cubes, potato pancakes, steamed potatoes, and a few other potato-based dishes. The Emperor gestured for the Crown Prince to take a seat, and then he surveyed the dishes. He ordered a bowl of beef soup and a tripod lake for Taoist Shangzhen, much to the Crown Prince's chagrin. It was evident that his father had immense trust in Taoist Shangzhen. Had it not been for the old Taoist priest's previous mishap during pill refinement, which had nearly cost the Emperor his life and resulted in a furious decree of death, the Emperor might have placed even more trust and favor in Taoist Shangzhen now. It was this prior incident that had kept Taoist Shangzhen in check, preventing him from becoming overly audacious. This had ultimately improved his circumstances. However, could Taoist Shangzhen maintain his composure going forward? Would the Emperor refrain from making any more mistakes? The Crown Prince couldn't fathom these uncertainties, nor did he dare to contemplate them. As both the Emperor's son and a minister, he lacked the authority to voice his concerns. The Emperor cast a glance at the dishes, and the attending eunuch promptly placed the 4 potato dishes in front of the Emperor. The Crown Prince smiled and remarked, "Father, please try them. I found them quite delicious before, so I had the audacity to present them to you." The Emperor nodded and picked up his chopsticks, sampling some of the shredded potatoes. In truth, the sour and spicy shredded potatoes needed to offer a burst of flavor to truly delight the palate. However, for the Emperor's meal, balance and harmony took precedence. The stir-fried shredded potatoes were only subtly spicy and tangy. Nonetheless, the palace chefs were exceptionally skilled. After receiving guidance from the chef from the East Palace accompanying the crown prince, the shredded potatoes were stir-fried to perfection. They retained their crispiness and were utterly delectable. The slight hint of sourness and spiciness effectively awakened the taste buds, leaving a refreshing aftertaste. The emperor nodded in satisfaction and proceeded to taste the other potato dishes, personally peeling the skin and taking a bite of the steamed potatoes. Exactly. The emperor was elated, his eyes shining as he exclaimed, "Your Highness, you have brought great prosperity to Great Qin. Well done, well done. These potatoes can serve as both vegetables and grains, and their productivity is exceptional. This is a blessing for Great Qin." The crown prince quickly stood up, taking a couple of steps back before bowing respectfully to his father. "Congratulations, father." The attending eunuchs knelt behind the crown prince, offering their congratulations to the emperor. "Congratulations, your majesty." Although they weren't entirely sure what they were congratulating the emperor for, the crown prince's words made sense, so they followed his lead. "Ah! Wonderful, wonderful." The emperor was genuinely delighted. After commending the crown prince, they enjoyed their meal together, starting with the potatoes and discussing matters related to the welfare of the people. In that moment, the father and son couldn't help but feel a sense of closeness. Even as rulers and ministers of the dynasty, they were bound by their bloodline as father and son. However, the emperor couldn't completely place his trust in the crown prince. He dispatched his trusted eunuch, along with the ministers of revenue and the ministry of personnel, to inspect and personally excavate the potatoes. News of this development sent shockwaves through the court and among the populace. Minister Qiao from the Ministry of Personnel was taken aback. He engaged in conversations with everyone, praising their efforts, but inwardly he seethed with anger. What was happening? How could the crown prince be so fortunate? The other princes were furious. Upon discovering Xiao Yunduan's involvement in this matter and realizing that he was the instigator, they were itching to seek retribution against him. Chapter 1356, Fury. However, no one dared to take action in defiance. Xiao Yunduan's name had once again risen to prominence, earning praise from the emperor. In this moment, no one dared to challenge Xiao Yunduan. The emperor entrusted all the potatoes to the Ministry of Revenue and instructed them to select a fertile piece of land from within the imperial plantation. When spring arrived the following year, they planned to enlist the help of Xiao Yunduan and Xiao Xian to cultivate the potatoes. There were numerous planting plots, totaling tens of thousands of caddies. Each potato could yield multiple shoots, and this quantity was far from insignificant. If the harvest in the upcoming year could prove the abundance of potatoes, there were discussions about distributing them to the commoners in the outskirts of the capital for cultivation. Furthermore, they considered sending some to Shandong, Hebei, and Hunan. However, these details would be deliberated upon later. Gradually, within 3 to 5 years, they anticipated gaining substantial recognition. Simultaneously, the crown prince informed the emperor and dispatched an envoy to the south to search for additional potato sources. According to Xiao Yunduan, the origin of the potato was the sea, giving hope that more could be found in the southern regions. Daoist Shangzhen took this opportunity to congratulate the emperor, affirming that his earlier prediction of an auspicious sign had indeed come to fruition with this discovery. The emperor was overjoyed by this validation. As a result, Daoist Shangzhen received a generous reward for his insights. Naturally, the crown prince and Xiao Yunduan were also rewarded for their roles in this discovery. However, it was clear that Daoist Shangzhen had exploited the situation, leaving the crown prince feeling somewhat aggrieved. Nonetheless, the emperor placed great trust in Daoist Shangzhen, and no one dared to challenge his assertions. In the end, the crown prince emerged as the primary beneficiary of this development, offering some solace to those who felt uneasy about the situation. If this endeavor proved successful in the future, the crown prince would have made a substantial contribution to the people of Great Qin. His dedication to their welfare would be evident over the long term, making it difficult for anyone to challenge his status easily. Understanding this reality only fueled the intense frustration of the fourth prince, third prince, and second prince. Given these circumstances, how could they ever hope to challenge the position of the crown prince? Coincidentally, during a visit to the emperor, Prince Nua expressed his desire to marry a princess of Qin, thus establishing a familial connection. Upon the emperor's approval, the other princes tacitly agreed to wed Princess Shuangfu, also known as Qin Yuzhen. Their choice was primarily influenced by the fact that Princess Xuanfu held the closest familial ties to the crown prince. Princess Xuanfu's mother was the cousin of the crown prince's biological mother, who tragically passed away during childbirth. It was the crown prince who had appealed to the emperor, requesting that Princess Consort care for and raise Princess Xuanfu. The prince and Princess Consort resided in the East Palace, but as Princess Xuanfu grew, they maintained a certain distance from her. It was clear that they couldn't provide the same care for her outside the court, and the closer they became to Princess Xuanfu, the more complicated her life would become. Nevertheless, she never lacked the care she deserved. Furthermore, Princess Xuanfu had always maintained a low profile, rarely interacting with others or partaking in social activities. With the exception of paying respects to the empress, she seldom left the palace courtyard. Hence, over the years, Princess Xuanfu's life had been relatively peaceful and stable, despite the absence of her mother and her limited interactions within the palace. The crown prince and princess consort were planning to arrange a suitable marriage for her in the coming year, ensuring that she could embark on married life with tranquility and complete her family. Princess Xuanfu's calm demeanor stemmed from her trust that the crown prince and princess consort would meticulously handle her personal affairs. She had no need to worry about anything. Chapter 1357, Princess and Marriage. She only needed to bide her time until she was old enough to leave the palace and embrace a carefree and comfortable life. In anticipation of that day, she could remain exceedingly quiet. Yet, she never foresaw that she would still become a pawn in the power struggle among the princes. The princes, the queen, honored Princess May, and others all made their moves simultaneously. Before the crown prince could even react, the fate of the matter had already been sealed. This left the crown prince disheartened and filled with sighs, for she was the sister he had looked after for so many years. However, given the current circumstances, there was little the crown prince could do. Princess Xuanfu had reached the age when she could be married off. Surprisingly, Empress Qi honored Princess May, and others suddenly began to describe him as a gentle and virtuous person. This delighted the emperor, who believed he was the most suitable candidate for a marriage alliance. True to his word, he approved the match. Due to this turn of events, the crown prince paid a visit to Princess Xuanfu in the palace. He wanted to offer her solace, but it proved difficult. He had promised to secure a suitable marriage for her and protect her for the rest of her life, yet he found himself reneging on that pledge. Princess Xuanfu, however, remained composed. Her initial anger and fear had swiftly subsided. After all, what other choice did she have? Born into the royal family, she had never possessed the autonomy to make her own decisions, not even the decision of her own birth. Surprisingly, Princess Xuanfu ended up comforting the crown prince, intensifying his feelings of guilt. With a forced smile, the crown prince inquired if she harbored any unfulfilled wishes. She did, she should share them. Princess Xuanfu's eyes sparkled with longing. She wished to step out of the palace and explore the capital city. In her entire life, she had never ventured beyond the palace walls, let alone set foot in the imperial gardens or the capital city itself. However, she had often heard other princesses speak of the bustling prosperity of the capital, and her curiosity compelled her to desire a glimpse of life outside the palace. She wanted to experience firsthand what Great Qin had to offer beyond the palace walls. Upon hearing her wish, the crown prince's heart was filled with sorrow. He nodded and assured Princess Xuanfu that he would arrange for her to explore the capital. Princess Xuanfu beamed with a sweet smile, her lovely face radiating joy, and she had no lingering regrets. The crown prince looked at her in a daze, only then realizing the true extent of Princess Xuanfu's beauty. Determined to make amends, the crown prince decided to discreetly enhance her dowry. This would enable Princess Consort to select valuable items from the East Palace's warehouse, as well as appoint a few capable maids and servants, along with a dozen guards for her protection. While Princess Consort should have consented, she hesitated. Who would willingly leave their hometown to marry a princess in a distant and unfamiliar land like Qingdi? The fact that someone was willing to go should have been enough, and Princess Consort was reluctant to let her depart. Before long, the emperor issued an imperial decree, formally bestowing Princess Xuanfu and Prince Nuanua as a marital pair to Qingdi. Prince Nuanua secretly met with Princess Xuanfu, and upon seeing her exquisite beauty and gentle demeanor, he felt content. In the court, everyone celebrated and the common folk rejoiced when discussing the matter. The union between the Princess of Qin and the Prince of Qingdi symbolized a closer relationship between the Great Qin Empire and Qingdi, suggesting that peace and stability would prevail for many years to come. It was a reason for collective joy. As for whether Princess Xuanfu herself was happy, it seemed that no one paid much attention, or perhaps no one cared. She believed that this would mark the end of her involvement in the matter. However, to her surprise, the emperor suddenly commanded Xiao Yunduan to escort Princess Xuanfu to Qingdi. Chapter 1358, Warning. When the crown prince received the news, the imperial edict had already been issued, leaving him seething with anger. In his East Palace study, he vented his frustration through an explosive outburst. Princess Consort and the others fell silent, apprehensive of his fury. With each passing year, the crown prince had grown more composed and dignified. It had been many years since his temper had flared in such a manner. Unable to contain his emotions any longer and unwilling to concede defeat, the crown prince decided to go to the court and plead with the emperor to rescind the order. "Father," he implored, "Lord Qiao is still young and has never undertaken such a responsibility before. I believe it would be more appropriate to dispatch an experienced official as the marriage envoy. Please reconsider, father." Throughout all these years, the crown prince had never contested any of the emperor's decisions. However, his appeal didn't elicit a positive response. Instead, it seemed to irritate the emperor, who had always been stern. His countenance darkened, and he retorted coldly, "Is my imperial edict a matter to be trifled with, subject to change at a whim? I have my own reasons for this decision, Crown Prince, and there is no need for further discussion. Your Highness, simply perform your duties. You need not inquire further about my intentions." These words left the crown prince trembling with trepidation. How could he dare utter another word? He respectfully bowed and withdrew. Upon discreet inquiry, the crown prince learned that honored Princess Mei and Daoist Shangzhen had instigated his father to appoint Xiao Yunduan as the envoy. They had done so despite him, as it was his actions that had indirectly implicated Xiao Yunduan. The crown prince was incensed. Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan remained unaware of this. However, the following day when the crown prince summoned Xiao Yunduan, he discovered that Xiao Yunduan was already privy to the situation. A heavy silence hung between them. With a guilt-ridden expression and a bitter smile, the crown prince confessed, "I have inadvertently drawn Officer Xiao into this predicament. I never anticipated the vehement opposition against Officer Xiao, nor did I expect my father to acquiesce. I beseeched my father to retract the order, but my efforts were in vain. I fear Officer Xiao will have to embark on this journey." Xiao Yunduan cast a surprised glance at the crown prince. After the emperor had issued the decree, the crown prince had gone so far as to plead his case directly with the emperor, a highly unusual move for him. "What else can I say, Crown Prince?" Xiao Yunduan smiled warmly. "In truth, I am genuinely eager to experience the customs of Qingdi. Such an opportunity is a rare privilege. Furthermore, I will feel more at ease accompanying Princess Xuanfu." Unspoken between them was the knowledge that honored Princess Mei, the fourth prince, and their allies had seethed with jealousy upon witnessing the emperor's praise of the crown prince. Given Xiao Yunduan's significant role in this matter, they would seize any opportunity to target him. The crown prince felt reassured after hearing Xiao Yunduan's words. He sighed, saying, "You are indeed Officer Xiao, with knowledge beyond that of ordinary individuals. Rest assured, I won't expose you to danger. I will arrange for someone to protect you. Moreover, as a marriage envoy, I doubt Qingdi would dare to act rudely. Nonetheless, the road ahead is long and the waters are deep. No one can predict what may transpire along the way. Officer Xiao, you must be prepared. If you require anything, Officer Xiao, do not hesitate to inform me." "Thank you, Crown Prince." Xiao Yunduan nodded in appreciation. "I will contemplate my preparations upon my return, and I will be ready for any eventuality." The Crown Prince nodded in return, determination in his eyes. "Officer Xiao, I trust you will return safely." Chapter 1359, Marriage Envoy. Xiao Yunduan came to pay his respects, with an additional purpose of delivering the New Year's money to the Crown Prince. 3 banknotes, each worth 10,000 taels, were discreetly placed in his arms. Despite the unexpected turn of events, the Crown Prince did not forget the matter at hand. He carefully arranged the banknotes on the table and said, "Officer Xiao, please don't hesitate to share your thoughts with me." "Certainly, Crown Prince." Xiao Yunduan didn't oppose the idea of being a marriage envoy. However, he was concerned about how to break the news to his wife. If his wife were to find out, she would undoubtedly be anxious. How could he bear to see her worried? Following that night, Xiao Yunduan took Qiao Xian aside and engaged in a heartfelt conversation. Sensing a positive atmosphere, he eventually broached the topic of his upcoming journey to escort Princess Shuangfu to Qingdi after the new year. The wedding date has been set. On the 8th of March next year, the Prince of Qingdi will depart for Qingdi, with the princess accompanying him. Please don't fret, my dear. I will certainly return to the capital in no more than half a year. During the days I'm away, if you're uncomfortable staying in the capital, I'll make all the necessary arrangements for you, whether you wish to go to Jiangnan or return home. Xiao Yunduan remained oblivious to the fact that his wife had been silently listening, without uttering a single word. His surprise was evident. Why was his wife so composed in response to such unexpected news? Something didn't seem right, it was very unusual. Wife, are you? Had she been rendered speechless by fear? Qiao Xian blinked, then peered up at him, her tone slightly irritated. Are you going to send off Princess Shuangfu? Yeah, that's all. You're going to escort the princess to Qingdi for her wedding, and you'll be gone for at least half a year? Qiao Xian inquired. Yes, but I will do my utmost to return as soon as possible. After all, parting from his wife was something he found unbearable. This topic was quite disheartening. He had just brought it up and the journey was still some distance away, yet he already felt reluctant. The fourth prince and the others were truly despicable. If they had any grievances, they could have directly approached the crown prince. What gave them the right to target him? Qiao Xian sighed gloomily, but this journey will take you through many mountains and rivers and the road is long. Who knows what challenges may arise along the way? If you encounter delays and are unable to return, I will be stranded, whether in the capital, the south, or at home. I can't go home as my mother would inquire, and I wouldn't dare to deceive her. If I reveal the truth, both my mother and my family will worry. Xiao Yunduan sighed in response. I understand and I'm sorry. Qiao Xian softly remarked, if you don't want me to endure this, that's acceptable too. Xiao Yunduan was taken aback. Of course I don't want you to suffer. You've said it. Of course. He couldn't bear to see his wife distressed, so why would he want to wrong her? However, for some reason, his wife's words seemed to carry a different meaning. All right. Qiao Xian smiled, embracing him and speaking sweetly, I'm coming with you. Okay. Wait, what? Wife, you promised not to let me suffer. You can't break your promise. Sweetheart, this is the only way. Xiao Yunduan found himself torn between amusement and exasperation. However, Qiao Xian didn't view it as a significant issue. I'll be there and Princess Shuangfu will have someone to accompany her. If any issues arise, Princess Shuangfu can communicate them directly to you, and I can speak on her behalf. It's rather convenient, isn't it? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1360 She's going too. But the journey is arduous and the path is long, Xiao Yunduan began, only to be interrupted by Qiao Xian's laughter. I've never been one to endure hardship. I used to grumble every time we ventured into the mountains. My dear husband, can you bear to leave me alone in the capital? Besides, I'm curious to see what Qingdi is like. In fact, this may be a once-in-lifetime opportunity. Husband, please allow me to accompany you. Xiao Yunduan sighed. As long as my husband agrees, he will surely find a way to secure a chance for me, won't you? Xiao Yunduan sighed again. He was growing increasingly frustrated, but he still hesitated to approve of taking Qiao Xian with him. It was not going to be a peaceful journey. This wasn't merely due to the unpredictable challenges of traversing mountains and rivers, or entering a foreign land. The main concern was that the fourth prince and the third prince were unlikely to let slip such a golden opportunity, especially the fourth prince. They were bound to find an opportunity to strike during the journey. The crown prince would dispatch guards and covert agents to ensure his safety, and Princess Shuangfu also had her own guard contingent. During the journey, the marriage envoy held absolute authority over the guards. Xiao Yunduan was confident in his ability to manage them. However, with Qiao Xian added to the mix, he could not guarantee anything. Excessive worry led to confusion. His deep affection and high regard for her left him anxious about potential risks and rewards. Once such concerns clouded his judgment, it could be perilous. Often, not only would it prove counterproductive, but it could also endanger both of them. This was something he absolutely could not accept. Although he found himself genuinely tempted by her proposition. Allowing her to accompany him without being separated would be the ideal scenario, a perfect balance. He also believed that she wasn't as fragile as she might appear. Even if the journey involved challenging terrain and lengthy travel, he was confident she could handle it. However, he couldn't afford to embrace this potentially perilous win-win situation, nor did he dare to. Xiao Yunduan couldn't bring himself to reject Qiao Xian outright, so he resorted to stalling tactics. It's getting late, my love. Let's retire for the night and we can discuss this further later. We've been on the boat for quite some time and you must be tired. How about going home and getting a good night's sleep? Qiao Xian felt a mix of irritation and amusement. She pinched his cheek and said with a playful smile, "Are you trying to evade me? If you're my husband, even if I bring this up tomorrow or later, can you really hide from me? Aren't you returning home tomorrow? Or are you planning to avoid talking to me?" Xiao Yunduan sighed. "Of course not." Qiao Xian grinned and coaxed him, "Just tell me, I want to hear it." Xiao Yunduan smiled wryly. She wanted to hear it? If she desired anything else, he would gladly comply. He simply fell silent, closed his eyes and refrained from speaking further. Qiao Xian smiled, closed her eyes and drifted off to sleep. In any case, she intended to go. If he denied her, she would insist on joining him. She differed from the daughters-in-law of other prominent families in the capital. They had elders and rules to guide them, but she did not. In the end, after days of persuasion, Xiao Yunduan relented. Forget it, he would take her along. After all, leaving her in the capital might put her in harm's way. Without his presence, not to mention the potential actions of the fourth prince, even the Tian family might exploit the situation to create problems. If something were to truly occur, he would be filled with even deeper regret. In the end, it seemed wiser to bring her along. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1361, Refusing. No matter what, he was determined to stay by her side. With him around, he was certain she would be safe. Xiao Yunduan broached the topic to the crown prince, using the pretext of collecting seeds. If it were just about accompanying the princess, the crown prince might have hesitated, as there had never been such a precedent. However, Xiao Yunduan suggested that Qiao Xian had a knack for planting flowers and trees and could potentially acquire valuable specimens during the journey, which would benefit the empire. The revival of the potatoes, strawberries and peony flowers had already demonstrated Qiao Xian's capabilities. Xiao Yunduan didn't need to elaborate much, as the crown prince had already drawn his own conclusion. Crown prince couldn't help but feel moved. "I agree to this arrangement, but there's no need to rush to announce it to the outside world. We can discuss it closer to the departure date. By then, even if someone intended to cause trouble, it would be too late." Xiao Yunduan concurred with the timing and expressed his gratitude. "Thank you, Crown Prince, for your understanding. In that case, I will inform Miss Qiao to begin preparations." "Very well," the Crown Prince replied. Observing Xiao Yunduan's softened demeanor and the subtle change in his tone when speaking of Qiao Xian, he couldn't help but chuckle internally. Officer Xiao and Miss Qiao are truly deeply in love with each other. It can be lonely to travel alone and the journey is fraught with challenges. Having someone to look after you is advantageous. What if I ask Princess Consort to select a trustworthy and sensible person to accompany Officer Xiao? It would provide him with additional assistance. Xiao Yunduan's expression twisted with discomfort and displeasure. "Crown Prince, you jest. I have no desire for anyone else to accompany me in this lifetime. My wife, Miss Qiao, is the only one I need." The Crown Prince's countenance momentarily stiffened, and Xiao Yunduan's unequivocal refusal left him feeling somewhat embarrassed. Xiao Yunduan could discern the underlying dynamics, so he sighed inwardly and self-deprecatingly remarked, "To be completely honest, Crown Prince, I lack the skill to manage the inner court. The mere thought of dealing with a multitude of women gives me a headache. I fear that conflicts would erupt both openly and secretly, causing utter chaos. That would be disastrous, wouldn't it? Let's keep it simple. Having a wife and children to continue the family line is sufficient. I am more inclined to assist Crown Prince with his burdens when I have the time." The Crown Prince burst into laughter. "Officer Xiao, your perspective is unique, but I appreciate it." He narrowed his eyes and spoke in a hushed tone, "Officer Xiao, please serve me diligently. Rest assured, I won't let you endure hardship." Xiao Yunduan bowed. "Crown Prince, I will always remember your benevolence. You've already done so much for me." The Crown Prince chuckled heartily, feeling even more content. On that day the Emperor also bestowed potatoes upon them. The emperor's rewards far surpassed those of the crown prince. Given Xiao Yunduan's significant contribution to the empire, his reward was expected to be substantial. Although Qiao Xian had played a significant role in the matter, being a woman put her at a disadvantage. However, if the crown prince could remember her kindness, why would the emperor argue with her? Xiao Yunduan handed over all the rewards to Qiao Xian, the 20 pieces of brocade, 4 pieces of jade ornaments, and 1 gold inlaid jade rui, with a smile and said, "This is all thanks to your efforts. Keep them all." Qiao Xian didn't decline and responded with a smile, "Of course, what's yours is mine and my contributions are yours as well. Why should we divide them? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1362. I expect it to be like this. Xiao Yunduan couldn't help but chuckle. "I like what you're saying." The two exchanged smiles. Qiao Xian was more concerned about accompanying Xiao Yunduan to Qingdi. Xiao Yunduan didn't hide anything from her and shared the crown prince's response. Qiao Xian smiled. "I had faith that you would persuade the crown prince." "That's wonderful. Let's start getting prepared to set off together." Seeing her joy, Xiao Yunduan felt a sense of relief knowing that they wouldn't have to be apart. The frustration he had felt earlier began to dissipate. At this moment he realized that deep down, he had hoped she would accompany him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have felt this relaxed upon confirming the arrangement. Qiao Xian, on the other hand, was genuinely thrilled. It was essentially an all-expenses-paid trip abroad. This was Qingdi, not the Great Qin Empire. While she could roam freely within the Great Qin Empire, a place like Qingdi was not accessible to just anyone. She had no intention of settling down there, but she was quite curious to explore. With the current friendly relationship between Great Qin and Qingdi, their safety wasn't a concern. Any minor issues could be resolved easily. Qiao Xian didn't need to prepare anything extraordinary, just clothes, shoes, socks, medicine and some tea leaves. Her storage space held everything she needed. In addition to food crops and various harvested fruits, she had stored plenty of clothes and daily necessities. There was also an abundance of firewood, oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar and tea. Afterward, Qiao Xian took some time to check on the strawberries. It was already late November and there were no more strawberries in season. Songshir and his team had used sickles to trim the stems and leaves, covering them with a layer of straw. Qiao Xian could immediately see that the strawberry patch had significantly shrunk in size. She noticed that Songshir had tidied up all the scattered pieces, making the empty area quite conspicuous. Qiao Xian remembered that there used to be strawberries in that spot as well. It was clear that this had been done by the individuals sent from the palace to harvest potatoes. They had taken numerous strawberry seedlings. Although Qiao Xian had anticipated this might happen, she couldn't help feeling a bit displeased. On second thought, there was a saying that it was easier to see the king of hell than to deal with his subordinates. Strawberries had become a precious commodity in the capital, and those people had an easy opportunity to obtain them. How could they resist the temptation? She should consider herself fortunate that only a small portion had been lost. What could she have done if they had taken them all or trampled them into a mess? Would she need to plead with the crown prince? They had harvested the potatoes neatly, and the vacant space had been plowed and tidied. The tangled potato stems were also cleared away. Qiao Xian was aware that Songshir must have arranged for this cleanup. Court personnel wouldn't bother with such tasks. Songshir was indeed a meticulous individual. Qiao Xian returned to Xiao Yunduan and smiled. "You should commend him later. Let's prepare a generous red envelope for him during the new year." Xiao Yunduan nodded. "He is remarkably attentive and organized, which is quite rare. Well, get sizable red envelopes and present them to him before we depart tomorrow." Agreed. When Songshir received his master's praise and heard about the red envelope, his face immediately lit up. Despite his humility, he couldn't help but grin with satisfaction. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1363, New Year Gift. He had hastily summoned his masters to address the aftermath of this crucial moment. His masters had finally acknowledged his hard work, ensuring he wasn't toiling in vain. To be honest, those from the palace and the Ministry of Revenue carried an air of nobility. They were quite brusque and impulsive. Fortunately, the steward of the East Palace accompanied him, and the head of the Ministry of Revenue was a colleague of his old master. He had to show them some respect and step in. Otherwise, who knew what those individuals might do to this parcel of land? Especially the strawberries, they would hardly believe it until every last one was uprooted. Qiao Xian gazed at the strawberries and inquired with Songsher about the hundreds of acres of carrots and cabbages. Could they be put on the market now? Songsher nodded enthusiastically. Look at the extensive planting we've done. There's no need for me to venture into the city to find buyers. Many vegetable vendors have already expressed interest. More than half of it has been sold and there's less than 300 acres left. I believe it will all be sold within 10 days. As Songsher spoke, he provided a clear breakdown of the pricing and income. Given the bulk purchases by the vegetable vendors, they had to offer competitive prices. Carrots and cabbages were both selling for 2.5 copper coins per caddy. Qiao Xian nodded in agreement. That was a reasonable price. In other words, the capital's prices were higher than elsewhere. In Heshan County, cabbages often went for 1 copper coin for 1.5 or 2 caddies. Qiao Xian didn't dare to charge significantly more for her own cabbages and radishes, aiming for only a 20% higher price than the competition. In total, the 100 acres of land could fetch over 40 taels of silver. After deducting all the expenses, they would earn approximately 40 taels of silver. The few hundred acres planted this winter could also yield more than 300 taels. This 300 taels would be just enough to prepare for the upcoming New Year festivities at home. He rewarded Songsher generously with 50 taels, while Li Xia and Li Qiao received 20 taels each and Qinyan was given 8 taels. The farmers on the farmstead were each provided with 2 taels, and the tenants received 3 taels each. Additionally, he tasked Songsher with purchasing a substantial amount of rice, flour, oil, salt, thick cotton cloth, quilts and other necessities. He distributed these items among the farmers and tenants based on their population. Even though prices in the capital were steep, particularly with the new year approaching, the overall expenditure was not excessive. However, it brought happiness to the people and fostered a sense of belonging. Qiao Xian instructed Songsher to reserve 40 to 50 caddies of radishes and cabbages from the field for the winter. Songsher expressed his agreement and couldn't help but remark, "Madam, you truly have a kind heart. I have never witnessed any master treat their subordinates as well as you do, madam. If they fail to work diligently, they would betray their conscience without you having to say a word. I won't tolerate slackness and I will promptly dismiss them." Qiao Xian smiled and replied, "You have been with my husband and me for a long time, so you understand our values. I can easily afford this small expense, and we can all enjoy a pleasant new year, can't we? Things go well in the future, that's wonderful. If not, well, handle it accordingly." Yes, madam is absolutely right. Qiao Xian resided in a comfortable home, as warm as spring, with abundant provisions. However, her servants and tenants were enduring the harsh winter at 5,000 meters, struggling to survive. This discrepancy weighed heavily on her conscience. Her upbringing and principles compelled her to take action. While she couldn't meddle in others' affairs or become a saint, she could make choices within her own family. In the blink of an eye, the 12th lunar month had arrived. The festive atmosphere in the capital grew more vibrant by the day, with the streets bustling with activity. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1364, Rumor. The New Year merchandise in the capital was a dazzling spectacle, offering a wide array of options that left one mesmerized. Every household bustled with activity, purchasing New Year goods and exchanging gifts. Qiao Xian was no exception to the festive spirit. The New Year ambience held a captivating allure, capable of uplifting one's mood year after year. Xiao Yunduan was a highly accomplished individual. He might not have been exceptionally popular, but he certainly stood out. This year, the invitations and gifts seemed more abundant than the previous year, prompting Qiao Xian to respond with even greater courtesy. In the East Palace, the Princess Consort directed her procurement team, housekeepers, and stewards to make elaborate preparations for the upcoming new year. She meticulously planned for various festive decorations to adorn the residence. Fresh flowers and plants would be arranged both inside and outside the house. Ingredients for a variety of snacks and dishes were carefully selected. She ensured that everyone in the household had their clothing tailored. She arranged for pouches and gold and silver berries as rewards. She also prepared a multitude of small gifts for the noble ladies and young ladies who wished to pay their respects, Every year at this time, Princess Consort found herself tirelessly occupied. However, no matter how hectic or challenging the preparations became, she never allowed the secondary concubines or concubines to encroach on her authority. Such moments filled her with immense pride in her role as the Princess Consort. She relished this sensation. Whenever such circumstances arose, she felt that all her patience and determination had been well worth it. As long as she persisted for a few more years and endured a bit longer, she would attain heights beyond the reach of any woman in the world. This thought provided her with boundless courage and strength to face each day with enthusiasm. This year, in addition to the rewards from the palace, the documents distributed by the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and contributions from several imperial estates, the Crown Prince bestowed upon her an additional 15,000 taels of silver. Princess Consort was taken aback by the news. This year's harvest had been quite favorable, with the Crown Prince making a substantial contribution and the Emperor's reward surpassing that of the previous year. The 15,000 taels of silver came as a welcome surprise, almost alleviating all her concerns for the upcoming new year. The East Palace was never short on resources, but what they lacked was liquid cash. Nevertheless, even if their stockpiled supplies were beginning to deteriorate in the warehouse, it was absolutely out of the question for the East Palace to sell them for money, be it openly or covertly. Such a discovery would have dire consequences. Now that she had sufficient funds, Princess Consort felt considerably more at ease. She could finally enjoy a comfortable new year. Unbeknownst to the Princess Consort, rumors had started to circulate among the noble royal families, the elite clans and the high-ranking officials. There were whispers that the Crown Prince had dipped into the national treasury to ensure a more lavish Lunar New Year celebration. Otherwise, Princess Consort struggled to secure funds for the New Year preparations. A well-known issue in the capital's middle-class circles, would have been a source of great distress. Yet this year, Princess Consort appeared carefree, facing no apparent obstacles. Word had it that Princess Consort had informed her relatives and associates that she had nothing to fret over this year, and they could enjoy a worry-free new year. What did Princess Consort need to worry about anyway? It was merely a matter of finances. She had no cause for concern now. And where did she procure the funds? Naturally, from the Crown Prince. But where did the Crown Prince acquire his wealth? Could it be that the Crown Prince could conjure money out of thin air? Or perhaps he was engaged in some sort of business. Upon hearing these rumors, the Crown Prince and Princess Consort vehemently denied them. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1365. Impeachment. Princess Consort in particular, seethed with anger, berating anyone who dared to slander the Crown Prince and even suggesting they deserved dire consequences. However, the sudden eruption of such fervent defense raised suspicion rather than quelling it. It seemed as though she was plagued by a guilty conscience. Before the Crown Prince could provide evidence of his innocence, an imperial censor swiftly lodged an impeachment against him, and the news spread like wildfire within the imperial court. The emperor, incensed by the allegations, summoned the Crown Prince and other princes to interrogate them. One couldn't overlook the gravity of the situation. Embezzlement from the national treasury by the Crown Prince was an enormous scandal, one that could lead to the forfeiture of his position. Naturally, the Crown Prince vehemently denied the accusations. How could he possibly commit such an act? The other princes jeered at him, pushing the Crown Prince to the brink. His eyes welled with tears as he knelt before the emperor, kowtowing fervently. Seeing this, though the emperor was reluctant, he ordered a thorough investigation. This was an immense matter, and the emperor could not rest easy without discovering the truth. The fourth prince observed from the sidelines, his demeanor icy and his smug satisfaction barely concealed. He eagerly anticipated the Crown Prince's downfall. As for the rumors, well, they held a grain of truth. Did the Crown Prince truly believe he could conceal such a clandestine act? If he hadn't been absolutely certain, why would he have allowed the news to circulate and secretly directed the censor to impeach him? Indeed, the Prince of Qingdi was still in the capital, leaving the fourth prince in a dilemma over whether to expose the matter. After all, airing their dirty laundry in public was a risky proposition. After careful consideration, why not proceed? The Crown Prince might have had absolute certainty about the presence of the Prince of Qingdi and his associates in the vicinity. With that assurance, no one would dare to voice objections, even if irregularities arose. Considering the undeniable evidence at hand, why not seize this opportunity to file a complaint? The one losing face would be the crown prince himself. It wouldn't concern anyone else. Even if their father found out, he would be livid and reprimand the crown prince. Of course, the fourth prince exercised great caution in handling this matter. He had verified multiple times that the crown prince had indeed used funds from the national treasury. A sum of 40,000 taels was not insignificant. If future events unfolded favorably, perhaps when the Prince of Qingdi departed the capital, their father would close ranks and deal with the family matters, ultimately deposing the crown prince. In the current moment, despite the crown prince's kowtowing and declarations of innocence, the fourth prince harbored nothing but disdain. He regarded the crown prince as a liar who had taken a step back to advance. Did the crown prince truly believe he could keep his actions concealed and remain safe? The emperor conducted a thorough investigation, arriving at a swift conclusion. As it turned out, the crown prince had been falsely accused. He hadn't utilized a single tael of silver from the national treasury. Princess Consort had no need to fret over this year's finances, not because the crown prince had secured it through improper means, but rather due to the imperial plantation's bountiful harvest. They had sold a substantial quantity of herbs, food, and livestock. The notion of 40,000 taels of silver was nothing more than baseless rumors. In fact, the crown prince had no such sum at his disposal. The imperial plantation's earnings amounted to a clear 8,000 taels of silver. Furthermore, the emperor had granted an additional 1,000 taels of silver, bringing the total to nearly 10,000 taels of silver. This explained Princess Consort's newfound financial freedom this year. With the crown prince's innocence firmly established, both he and the emperor breathed sighs of relief. Otherwise, the Qin Empire would have been unable to salvage its dignity, and the position of the crown prince would have been entrusted to another. Chapter 1366, Trap. The emperor breathed a sigh of relief and instructed his trusted aide to continue the investigation. Where had this rumor originated from? Why would anyone malign the crown prince in this manner? Who had propagated it? However, the diplomatic delegation from Qingdi had disseminated such rumors while still in Great Qin. Their intentions were evidently malevolent. If they were not harshly punished as a deterrent, what repercussions would follow? The emperor was far from senile and oblivious. Who dared to taunt him in such a manner? It was a clear provocation. The fourth prince, bewildered, infuriated, and anxious, hastened to the palace to confer with honored Princess Mei. In honored Princess Mei's chamber, he unleashed a torrent of furious curses aimed at the crown prince. Honored Princess Mei's countenance grew as cold as ice, her fury palpable. At this juncture, what remained unclear to the mother and son? They had been ensnared. Without a doubt, the orchestrator behind this conspiracy had to be the crown prince himself. He deliberately revealed suspicious elements and intentionally allowed them to uncover evidence. He executed actions that would lead them astray and ensnared them in his trap step by step. They believed they had covertly unearthed his secrets and held leverage over him without his knowledge. They believed victory was within reach, but it all turned out to be a ruse. It was an illusion he had meticulously crafted to draw them in. The fourth prince seethed with indignation. I never anticipated that the esteemed crown prince would resort to such deplorable tactics. I never expected him to deteriorate to this extent. What happened to the refined and gentlemanly crown prince with impeccable manners? The fourth prince's once favorable opinion of the crown prince shattered into a million pieces. Had this happened to the second or third prince, the fourth prince likely would not have acted rashly or probed any further. However, the crown prince was an exception. How else could it be put? When an inherently honest person resorts to deception, the consequences can be dire. The crown prince seemed intent on orchestrating his downfall. Honored Princess Mei sneered. As I've always said, there's no wolf in this world that doesn't crave meat and blood. He holds the position of crown prince. If he were genuinely gentle, benevolent, and harmless, he wouldn't have been able to maintain his standing. This time both of us were complacent, and that's why he schemed against us. We can't afford to make such mistakes again. But mother, what if father discovers my involvement? What should I do? The fourth prince harbored a deep fear of his father's methods. He lacked confidence that his father wouldn't uncover the truth. There were likely few things in the capital that could remain concealed from his father's keen awareness. Furthermore, in his excitement, he was prone to making mistakes, which only heightened his anxiety. If it were true, he would have no such concerns. When father scolded the crown prince in his anger, he would likely not delve into further inquiries. But that was not the case. Honored Princess Mei furrowed her brow. She too lacked confidence. Considering your father's temperament, this matter won't be easily resolved. Find someone for him. As for your father, I'll offer my apologies and confess the truth to him. The fourth prince's eyes widened in astonishment. Confess the truth? Honored Princess Mei sneered. Even if we don't speak of it, do you believe your father won't discern the truth? We can't afford to take that risk. I know what to say. Your father won't take kindly to hearing about your scandalous liaison. Nevertheless, you must prepare yourself, as a scolding is likely unavoidable. Chapter 1367. Crying and Apologizing. At that moment she would undoubtedly adopt a repentant demeanor. The fourth prince was rendered speechless. He dreaded this course of action. It was intensely humiliating. Furthermore, he pondered what his father's opinion might be. However, he had no better alternative. Avoiding this embarrassment would likely result in his father's disfavor from this point onward, a prospect he found even more unacceptable. In choosing the lesser of two evils, he reluctantly resolved to endure this path. The fourth prince clenched his teeth. A dog that bites doesn't bark. That devious individual. It appears that among us brothers, he is the most cunning. Remember this, mark my words. Honored Princess Mei sneered. It's challenging to maintain a facade of gentility for so many years. This time he has finally revealed his true nature. Alright, once the mask falls, there's no concealing it. It's not just us. Your second and third brothers will also keep a close watch on him. While it offered little solace to the fourth prince, it was better than nothing. The fourth prince vented his anger for a while before adding, in the past things were fine, but why do I feel that ever since that Qiao fellow entered his circle, he has become heretical, malevolent, wicked, and crafty. That Qiao fellow is genuinely detestable. He refrained from blaming Qiao Xian directly due to her status, only muttering this sentiment privately. Hearing his words, Honored Princess Mei felt a mixture of indignation and amusement. Nevertheless, she recognized that her son needed an outlet for his anger, preventing him from falling ill and ensuring they could welcome the new year in high spirits. In addition to ushering in the old and the new, one had to maintain a cheerful and contented demeanor. Only then could they attract good fortune. Honored Princess Mei remarked, Xiao Yunduan serves as Princess Shuangfe's wedding envoy, entrusted with escorting the princess to Qingdi for her wedding next spring. It's a lengthy journey and one can't guarantee that no mishaps will occur along the way. In essence, this meant there would be ample opportunities to enact their plans. The fourth prince felt somewhat relieved and commented, That's too long a wait. I can't hold out that long, so I ought to exact some retribution sooner. Frankly, I simply don't care for Xiao Yunduan, and it would irk me if I didn't teach him a lesson. It appears we'll have to do this the hard way. Honored Princess Mei harbored a strong aversion to anyone associated with the crown prince, and Xiao Yunduan was far from the only one. However, there was no denying that this particular individual was particularly vexing, consistently stirring up trouble. In that case, proceed cautiously and don't overstep. And don't entangle yourself unnecessarily. The fourth prince huffed, I understand. The mother and son concurred that, before the emperor could identify the mastermind, Honored Princess Mei would feign tears and confess. Honored Princess Mei recounted that the fourth prince had been equally astounded when he first heard of the matter from his subordinates. He had intended to report it to the emperor, but the issue was too significant. Lacking concrete evidence, he couldn't broach it lightly. Accusing the crown prince of such a transgression was no trifling matter. As a result, he had instructed his subordinates to conduct a discreet investigation. Unexpectedly, they uncovered that the crown prince had indeed embezzled funds from the treasury and surreptitiously transferred them to the East Palace. Even if the fourth prince possessed the audacity, he wouldn't dare to conceal such a grave matter. Nonetheless, the 12th lunar month had already arrived, with the new year rapidly approaching. Furthermore, the Prince of Qingdi and his entourage were currently in the capital's intermediate ranks. If news of this scandal were to spread, where would the crown prince's reputation be? Where would the royal family's dignity stand? Chapter 1368, Stirring. The fourth prince remained hesitant. To his surprise, this rumor had actually spread among the princes, kings, monarchs, nobility, and important ministers. The fourth prince was unshaken by the development, and he dared not voice the allegations personally, as it might seem like he was further maligning the crown prince. Since the matter had already disseminated widely, Concealing it was futile and unnecessary. Consequently, he instructed an imperial censor to lodge a formal impeachment. He decided to bring the issue into the open, allowing people to see that the laws of the Great Qin Empire were rigorous, even when it came to the punishment of royal transgressors. Unexpectedly, after the emperor conducted a thorough investigation, it transpired that the crown prince had been wronged. He was innocent. "Your Majesty," honored Princess Mei exclaimed, the fourth prince was truly terrified. He had genuinely received a report from his subordinates, believing that the crown prince had embezzled funds from the national treasury. Therefore, he secretly initiated an investigation. It is unclear why the report he received was accurate. This is truly, these officials were extraordinarily audacious to deceive the fourth prince. How did the situation devolve to this point? The fourth prince is so shocked, terrified, and at a loss that he cannot face your Majesty. As his mother, I must summon the courage to clarify matters before your Majesty, so that your Majesty can temper your anger. This child acted too impulsively and erratically this time. I won't intercede on his behalf at all. I only hope your Majesty comprehends the intricacies of the situation. That disobedient son of mine would be content. Your Majesty is sagacious. Please be merciful. The emperor gazed coldly at honored Princess Mei, who knelt on the ground and wept. He offered no response, maintaining his stern demeanor. Taoist Shangzhen, seated on a futon, holding a Buddhist relic in hand, cleared his throat gently. Your Majesty, remain composed. Anger consumes the liver and damages the internal organs. It does not benefit your cultivation. The emperor closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and endeavored to regain his composure. Upon reopening his eyes, his countenance exhibited a hint of softening. Is that so? Your Majesty, I would never dare to deceive you. Fourth brother is far too meddlesome. This matter concerns the crown prince. He didn't bring it to my attention first, yet he had the audacity to conduct a secret investigation. Quite audacious. Honored Princess Mei kowtowed, her hairpin faintly clinking as it touched the ground. I beseech your Majesty's forgiveness. The emperor's voice remained cold as he stated, if I don't reprimand him, it would diminish the crown prince's standing. Instruct him to offer an apology to the crown prince and reflect upon his actions in seclusion. Yes, I convey the emperor's gratitude on behalf of the fourth prince. Honored Princess Mei kowtowed, her eyes moist with tears. Internally she heaved a sigh of relief. It appeared that the emperor accepted her account. After all, it was not the fourth prince who had orchestrated this personally. It sufficed to offer up a scapegoat to shoulder the blame. However, this approach resulted in the fourth prince receiving a reprimand and punishment from the emperor, significantly diminishing his prestige and placing him below even the crown prince. Honored Princess Mei, who had just narrowly escaped crisis, was once again consumed by resentment. The emperor still held great affection for honored Princess Mei. Observing her on her knees, tears in her eyes, he felt a pang of sympathy. He sighed and uttered, I am baffled by your involvement in this matter. Rise. I know you are devoted to me. Yes, I am deeply grateful for the emperor's benevolence. My unwavering loyalty to the emperor is evident to all. Due to this, as the mother of the fourth prince, I feel all the more ashamed. Chapter 1369, Apology. Honored Princess Mei wiped away her tears, her pretty face reflecting a blend of sorrow and shame, intermingled with a touch of relief and admiration. She gently held the hand of the young palace maid and stood up unsteadily. The emperor's investigation and honored Princess Mei's account didn't unearth much of a source. The fourth prince had instructed those who secretly looked into the matter to harbor resentment against the crown prince for previous punishments, prompting them to use their influence to exact revenge and falsely implicate the crown prince. He had also been the one clandestinely spreading the rumors. Ironically, his efforts to frame the crown prince had backfired, almost leading to his own downfall. Recognizing that framing the crown prince would leave him with no escape, he ultimately took his own life. As the year drew to a close, this incident was far from honorable. With the Qingdi diplomatic delegation also in attendance, as honored Princess Mei had predicted, the emperor was disinclined to exacerbate the situation or involve the royal brothers in the feud. Hence, when honored Princess Mei implored for clemency with tears in her eyes, he chose not to delve further into the matter. Consequently, this outcome was realized. Honored Princess Mei had already accepted responsibility for the fourth prince on his behalf, signaling his recognition of his transgressions. After receiving a rebuke and a lesson, the matter would conclude. What alternative did he have? To conduct an exhaustive inquiry? Not only would it unleash a storm ensnaring numerous individuals and leading to dismissals, but it would also embroil countless families in investigations and penalties. Furthermore, if the fourth prince were embroiled in the investigation, how would the emperor handle his own son? Did he desire his own child's life? The emperor would never entertain such an idea. The fourth prince too breathed a sigh of relief. Much like honored Princess May, the fourth prince had temporarily set aside his grievances after the ordeal. However, as soon as the matter was resolved, he couldn't help but harbor indignation and resentment. Yet he didn't dare to defy his father's decree. In order to present an appearance of apology, he instructed his subordinates to select a substantial assortment of precious antiques from the palace warehouse. These items included various pieces crafted from gold, silver, jade, and porcelain. While these treasures would be considered rare and valuable in most households, within his own favored prince's residence, they held little significance. He wouldn't feel any heartache even if he gave them away. In fact, he decided to present these items as gifts without a single tael of silver. The fourth prince arrived with a considerable quantity of gifts to offer as an apology. The crown prince, not one to let such an opportunity pass, made a few remarks during their exchange. He advised, "Don't let your subordinates deceive you and damage our brotherly relationship. Avoid such actions in the future. And if you have any doubts, you can always ask me directly. We are brothers and there's nothing we can't discuss." The fourth prince nodded with a forced smile. After exchanging pleasantries for a while, the matter was considered resolved, even though an underlying tension hung in the air. The crown prince was eager to keep the gifts, but the fourth prince couldn't bear to stay any longer. He feared that if he remained in the presence of the crown prince's gentle and elegant facade, he might lose control of his emotions and hit him right on the face. Though he managed to force a smile, the fourth prince couldn't help but feel a seething anger as he looked at the crown prince's deceptive exterior. He longed to confront him. After struggling to contain his feelings, he finally mustered a smile. If the fourth prince decided to stay, the crown prince would treat him courteously and keep him company. However, he wouldn't insist if the fourth prince chose to leave. Chapter 1370. Wrong Idea. The fourth prince bid his farewell and departed. The crown prince then instructed someone to unwrap the gifts brought by the fourth prince, chuckling to himself. The items were undeniably precious. Jade and porcelain, renowned creations from official kills, each held a value of thousands in gold. However, the fourth prince's household was far from wanting in such luxuries. Could it be that the Eastern Palace lacked these items? It was more likely that the East Palace possessed even more of these treasures compared to the fourth prince's residence. Everyone in the city knew that the East Palace was in dire need of funds. It was no secret, and the crown prince was well aware of the considerable wealth of the fourth prince's residence. Bestowing gifts and extending apologies had to be carried out with finesse, adding to his challenges. The Tian family brothers, as anticipated, this was the only recourse. The crown prince let out a silent sigh. He felt a sense of despondency and powerlessness creep over him. He had once believed that through genuine sincerity and time, others would come to understand his intentions and recognize the kind-hearted person he was. They would have faith that even if their father ruled the world in the future, he would remain a loving brother who would treat them kindly. However, the kindness he had endured and repeatedly forgiven couldn't endure the deliberate and unintentional provocations, hardships, and wounds inflicted upon him. He wasn't made of stone. No matter how generous and magnanimous he was, he couldn't remain indifferent to these continual injuries. It seemed he had been mistaken all along. This position was simply too alluring. It was what they had desired from the outset. As long as he didn't voluntarily relinquish this position, no matter how well-intentioned and kind-hearted he was towards them, it proved futile. They wouldn't show gratitude. Instead, they would exploit their opportunities and become even more ambitious. After dinner, Princess Consort informed the Crown Prince about the New Year gifts. The Crown Prince had endured injustice, and now that he had found redress, the fourth prince's fortunes had taken a downturn. Although this remained a secret, Princess Consort couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Unwittingly, her chattiness grew, and she engaged the Crown Prince with a smile. However, the Crown Prince appeared distracted and simply remarked, "Princess Consort, you have the authority to decide. You're the one who worries about this every year, so I have no concerns." Her heart warmed at his words and she nodded with a smile. Oh, one more thing, the Crown Prince suddenly added. Officer Qiao has done an exceptional job in managing our affairs. Don't forget to prepare a generous gift for the Qiao family as well. After pondering for a moment, he continued, include half of the gifts for Officer Qiao in the intermediate gifts. There's no need to wrap them, just send them directly to him. Keep the other half in storage. Princess Consort was taken aback but smiled. Certainly I understand. Lord Qiao truly deserves such a generous reward for his dedication to the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince nodded with a grin. There were certain matters, like Officer Qiao's loyalty and Miss Qiao's involvement, that he couldn't openly discuss with Princess Consort. Nevertheless, he was determined not to treat them unfairly. Observing the Crown Prince's good mood, Princess Consort seized the moment to express, Lord Qiao will be sending Princess Xuanfu off for her wedding next year, and it will likely take him at least half a year for the journey. It's not ideal for him to have no one to look after him. What if I select a gentle, intelligent, and considerate person to accompany him? Lord Qiao can also rely on this person when he departs, which would save us a lot of trouble in the province. Chapter 1371. Is it wrong? Princess Consort had harbored this desire for a long time, but circumstances hadn't afforded her the opportunity. Strangely, Qiao Xian's rejection of the fourth Princess Consort felt like a thorn lodged in her heart, causing her discomfort. Logically, she should have taken pleasure in the fourth Princess Consort's humiliation, but that wasn't the case. Instead, she believed that Qiao Xian needed a lesson in virtue. Without the guidance of her mother and elders, she should learn everything. Lord Qiao had a promising future ahead, with a high likelihood of rising to a prominent official position. How could he not have a suitable wife? That would be problematic. Wouldn't it tarnish Lord Qiao's reputation? Wouldn't it undermine his dignity? The Crown Prince looked up at Princess Consort, his gaze sharp enough to startle her. Crown Prince, is this inappropriate? She asked hesitantly. Though it was technically fine, it just wouldn't work. The Crown Prince replied, no need. Didn't I already advise you? Don't interfere in Officer Qiao's family matters. Princess Consort was taken aback, feeling a growing unease in her heart. She forced a smile and said, Crown Prince, you've misunderstood me. This isn't meddling in family affairs. I merely believe it's a more suitable arrangement. Lord Qiao will have someone to accompany him during his journey, and Madame Qiao will feel more at ease. Isn't that ideal? The Crown Prince remained silent, caught in a dilemma. In truth, he also believed that Princess Consort's plan was well thought out and appropriate, and he secretly concurred. But what was the point of agreeing? Officer Qiao would likely not appreciate that idea. Madame Qiao was a capable woman, but she also had a temper. One of the Crown Prince's admirable qualities was his reluctance to impose his own wishes on others. He had a deep respect for people's autonomy. Very well, Officer Qiao, if you require anything you can handle it on your own. No need to fret about it, the Crown Prince affirmed. Princess Consort was taken aback by this response. The Crown Prince remained concerned and turned his attention to her, reiterating, Officer Qiao's family matters are not a concern for you. Princess Consort couldn't help but speak up. Crown Prince, are you concerned that Miss Qiao might react unfavorably? I mean no disrespect, but there's a limit to jealousy. Lord Qiao is someone you hold in high regard, and he has a promising future. The Crown Prince wouldn't want him to be ridiculed due to a domestic incident. Don't worry, I'll speak with Miss Qiao about this, and I'll ensure that Lord Qiao doesn't create any disturbances in his own household. Being the Princess Consort, it was reasonable to expect that Miss Qiao would heed her request when asked directly. Furthermore, she was doing this for the benefit of Miss Qiao and Lord Qiao. If Miss Qiao possessed any sense, she should know how to choose wisely. Did she not understand how the capital's gossip-mongers ridiculed men who seemed afraid of their wives? Regardless of a man's competence, such a reputation would be a liability. Lord Qiao was fortunate in that the Crown Prince trusted and valued him, allowing him to retain his prominent position despite the rumors. For anyone else, such rumors would have spelled the end of their career. If Miss Qiao truly cared for Lord Qiao, she should exhibit some sensibility. No, there's no need, the Crown Prince replied, feeling exasperated. Princess Consort had never been so insistent before. What had come over her? Why was she fixated on this matter? Princess Consort, Officer Qiao has a clear plan and knows what he will and won't do. Please refrain from interfering in his affairs, and do not bring this up again. Chapter 1372. Princess Consort did not hear any words. But, Princess Consort, that is the case. Yes, Crown Prince, I understand. As long as you understand. The Crown Prince had no intention of prolonging his stay. After reminding Xiao Yunduan not to forget about the New Year's gift, he returned to his study. Princess Consort breathed a sigh of relief, her hand resting on her chest. Her inner turmoil persisted and she couldn't find peace. Auntie, do you know why the Crown Prince is getting involved in such matters? She inquired. It struck her that the Crown Prince's remarks might have been motivated by concern for Qiao Xian's feelings. Yet, the Crown Prince and Qiao Xian had no apparent connection, so why would he care about matters in the backyard? Auntie Fu offered a gentle smile. Lord Qiao is unique, and the Crown Prince has a particular regard for him. He must have his reasons for saying what he did, so perhaps it's best to spare yourself the trouble. Hearing these words, Princess Consort found solace and replied with a smile, You're right. She sighed, reflecting on her actions. Why am I doing this? It's all for the Crown Prince. Lord Qiao is the Crown Prince's right-hand man and Minister Old Yun's confidant. Lord Qiao hails from the countryside and may not be well versed in the ways of the nobility. There are no elders here to guide him, and Miss Qiao isn't a native of this province. I'm just concerned. What if Miss Qiao becomes upset? Lord Qiao would be so embarrassed. Auntie Fu struggled to find the right words. She had repeatedly assured Princess Consort that Madame Xiao was exceedingly polite. She had patiently taught her etiquette and decorum on multiple occasions, and Madame Xiao had proven to be a diligent learner, attentively seeking guidance and asking numerous questions. Madame Xiao was the daughter of a concubine and hadn't experienced much of the world. She lacked reliable elders to guide her, but she was far from being a troublesome woman. She certainly wouldn't resort to causing public scenes. However, it seemed that Princess Consort paid little heed to this fact. Auntie Fu couldn't fathom why Princess Consort seemed so insistent but knew that pressing further would only annoy her. With a gracious smile, Auntie Fu offered, Lord Qiao is no pushover. I believe he can handle Miss Qiao. Princess Consort had little choice but to adopt a more optimistic outlook. She smiled and said, I hope so. If that's the case, it'll be a testament to his abilities. I shouldn't worry too much. When the Crown Prince mentioned the New Year gift for the Xiao family, Princess Consort inspected the presents closely. Among them were pairs of brocade pastry gift boxes, mushrooms including pine mushrooms and silver ear mushrooms, sea cucumbers, abalones, shrimps, dried delicacies and other rare seafood gift boxes. There were also 6 pairs of palace flowers, inner pouches, 2 jars of tea leaves, 2 jars of top-notch pear blossom wine, and lengths of brocade. They had selected the finest superior class items and used elaborate gift boxes. Coincidentally, the Crown Prince's attendants had delivered the gift boxes from the 4th Prince, prompting Princess Consort to arrange them neatly. Curiosity piqued, she pointed to 2 individuals and instructed them to open the boxes. One box contained a green jade carving with flower motifs and a peony stove, while the other held a 5-colored hollow cloud phoenix bottle. All were tribute-quality items and exquisitely crafted, each worth at least 20,000 to 30,000 taels of silver in the market. Impressed, Princess Consort remarked with a smile, the 4th Prince is truly generous. Chapter 1373. Qiao Xian was a little dumbfounded. Princess Consort glanced at the 10 gift boxes and immediately surmised that they must be quite valuable. She didn't need to examine the rest to estimate their worth. A sense of sympathy washed over her. Even if they couldn't be sold, these items were valuable goods that could be stored in the 500 meters warehouse and used for future rewards. While Lord Qiao was undoubtedly the Crown Prince's trusted confidant, was it really necessary to bestow such lavish gifts all at once? This gift alone was worth at least 100,000 taels of silver. Princess Consort couldn't quite comprehend why the Crown Prince held Lord Qiao in such high regard. Lord Qiao was an admirable man, but it seemed the Crown Prince had exceptionally high expectations of him. Pack them up and send them over tomorrow, Princess Consort sighed, not wanting to dwell on it any longer. She felt increasingly stifled after this revelation. Given the Crown Prince's instructions, she couldn't secretly retain the gifts. That was out of the question. The following day, the generous New Year gift was dispatched to the Qiao residence. Xiao Yunduan was absent, leaving Qiao Xian somewhat bewildered. Although they couldn't ascertain the contents of the gift boxes, judging by their size and origin from the East Palace, they were undoubtedly valuable. It wouldn't be appropriate to inquire if the East Palace had mistakenly sent such an extravagant gift. Qiao Xian graciously thanked them while discreetly instructing Li Xia to increase the amount in the red envelopes given to the young eunuch and Auntie Liang. Once Auntie Liang returned to the East Palace, she reported everything to Princess Consort. After a moment's thought, she added with a smile, "Madame Xiao is remarkably generous. She gave me a 50-tael silver tip, and the eunuchs accompanying her each received 20 taels of silver." Originally, if the master did not ask about such a small matter as a servant, the servant did not have to report it. But Qiao Xian had given her too much this time, so Auntie Liang thought that it was better to say something. 50 taels? Today, even the coachman was accompanied by 3 eunuchs, totaling 60 taels, making it a grand sum of 110 taels. This was indeed a substantial amount. It was worth noting that even on the Crown Prince's birthday, rewards given to his subordinates typically amounted to only 10 taels. Both Princess Consort and Auntie Fu were taken aback by the generosity of the gift. Princess Consort let out a scoff. "If it's meant as a reward, then let them keep it." Auntie Liang, with a nod of agreement and a smile, departed. Princess Consort remarked, "Madame Xiao is exceedingly generous. She doesn't seem to be concerned about spending Lord Xiao's money." Chapter 1374. Must compete again. Qiao Xian was taken aback when she laid eyes on the gifts. The 10 pieces of jade, porcelain and gold-plated purple copperware were all exquisite, clearly treasures of tribute grade. The intricate designs, fine craftsmanship, and intricate details garnered admiration from the depths of her heart. This left Qiao Xian feeling inexplicably guilty. It seemed that gifting the Crown Prince a mere 30,000 taels of silver might have seemed rather paltry. This was an extraordinary windfall. Even if she wasn't an expert in valuing such items, it was evident that the combined value of these 10 items far exceeded 30,000 taels. When Xiao Yunduan returned, Qiao Xian couldn't contain her surprise and promptly showed him the gifts. "Husband, these are the New Year's gifts sent by the Princess Consort. Don't you think they are too extravagant? Shouldn't we give the Crown Prince more money?" Xiao Yunduan burst into laughter. "Well, since the East Palace has been so generous, we can keep it. We will provide the Crown Prince with additional funds before our departure in the spring. I have a plan in mind." The Crown Prince wouldn't be lacking in resources. Xiao Yunduan had spent a considerable amount of time by his side, gaining insights into his financial management. While he might not be completely accurate, he wouldn't be too far off the mark. He couldn't afford to give the Crown Prince an excessive amount of money. He had to exercise caution. Qiao Xian smiled, feeling reassured. In the blink of an eye, the minor New Year had come and gone. The capital had become even livelier, with an intensified festive atmosphere. During this period, the government offices were essentially operating at half capacity. There was little pressing work to attend to, and unless it was an urgent matter, no one was in a hurry to address it. Official duties were temporarily put on hold, resuming their normal pace only after the New Year and the Lantern Festival. Families were preoccupied with attending social events and gatherings. Qiao Xian adapted, but Xiao Yunduan had to participate in banquets or small gatherings nearly every day. What left people utterly speechless was that Qingdi's prince had been engaged in drinking contests with Xiao Yunduan ever since Xiao Yunduan and Qiao Xian returned from their journey south. Prince of Qingdi possessed a decent alcohol tolerance, and he was considered an intermediate-level drinker. Remarkably, his competitive spirit burned as fiercely as ever. The more he lost, the more determined he became. It seemed that as long as he could outdo the great Qing people in any aspect, he would find contentment and fulfillment. They had no choice but to compete in one area where they could still hold their ground: drinking. Furthermore, because Xiao Yunduan managed the dishes excellently, he had to rise to the occasion wherever he fell. Prince of Qingdi admired Xiao Yunduan but was also eager to best him, particularly in matters of drinking. Xiao Yunduan couldn't decline Prince of Qingdi's challenges, so he continued to accept one glass after another. Nevertheless, he kept a watchful eye on his own limits, ensuring he didn't become too intoxicated. If he felt he was approaching that threshold, he would decline further drinks. However, what he didn't anticipate was that Prince of Qingdi would be the first to succumb. The prince became so inebriated that his speech became slurred, and his eyes lost focus. He could hardly articulate coherent sentences. As his own attendants escorted him away, Xiao Yunduan still sat gracefully with clear eyes, appearing only slightly tipsy. Consequently, the banquet that day ended with the young prince completely inebriated and unconscious in the province. Initially this didn't raise much concern. However, it soon came to light that the wine Prince of Qingdi and Xiao Yunduan had consumed that night was different from the rest. Chapter 1375. Are you giving others a way out? The two of them were consuming a potent liquor that had been specially procured by the Qingdi delegation. The alcohol content was so high that individuals with average tolerance would become inebriated after consuming just over half of a 2-inch glass of this exquisite beverage. Even those with good alcohol tolerance could manage only around less than 1 caddy. Even in Qingdi, where people generally had better alcohol tolerance, most could handle at most half a kilogram. Among the Qingdi people, Prince of Qingdi boasted one of the highest alcohol tolerances. He could consume over 2 caddies, out-drinking the majority of his compatriots. He had assumed that Xiao Yunduan, who appeared frail and delicate, would barely manage half a glass at most. This would give him an opportunity to taunt the Great Qin Empire's people for their inability to hold their liquor. He anticipated at least one victory to restore his reputation, right? Unexpectedly at the outset, the two of them had only consumed 3 glasses. Aside from a faint frown, Xiao Yunduan seemed entirely composed. It was a far cry from what Prince of Qingdi had envisioned. The prince was taken aback and unwilling to let Xiao Yunduan off so easily. He searched for excuses to continue drinking, cup after cup. Ultimately, it was Prince of Qingdi who had hoped to defeat Xiao Yunduan who succumbed first. When the truth became known, everyone was left dumbfounded. Some individuals harbored doubts and, to verify the potency of the liquor, acquired some of the Qingdi wine for testing. Indeed, it was exceptionally strong and could easily intoxicate. No one had a response to this revelation. Some gnashed their teeth in dissatisfaction. Xiao Yunduan's conduct was utterly unconventional. What kind of luck did he possess? While excelling in scholarship was one thing, a scholar who appeared so unassuming could hold his liquor so impressively. Wasn't this too much? He was offering no respite to anyone. Xiao Yunduan was equally taken aback. He had never realized that he could hold his liquor so effectively. The fact was, he had never been drunk before, so he had no way of knowing the extent of his alcohol tolerance. He simply felt that he could still consume more whenever he was encouraged to drink, and he never reached his limit. When Crown Prince chuckled and commended him as a perfected, Xiao Yunduan could only smile wryly. Qiao Xian, on the other hand, laughed along when her colleagues teased her. She understood that each time her husband returned home to rest, she guided energy into his body to help him recover from the effects of the alcohol, ensuring he felt better when he woke up the next day. As a result, Xiao Yunduan never experienced headaches or dizziness after drinking, all thanks to Qiao Xian. Seeing the effectiveness of her efforts, Qiao Xian continued to provide her support. Over time, Xiao Yunduan's alcohol tolerance improved. Naturally, he remained unaware of this development. Prince of Qingdi had been utterly convinced of his defeat. He had been the one to provide the alcohol and had personally indulged in it, yet he still couldn't best Xiao Yunduan. As a man, he had little choice but to concede defeat. Prince of Qingdi held Xiao Yunduan in high regard in every aspect. From that point onward, Prince of Qingdi sought out Xiao Yunduan every few days. While Xiao Yunduan found this quite bothersome, Prince of Qingdi wished to have Xiao Yunduan as his guest. When Crown Prince reported this to the Emperor laughed and agreed. Thus, Xiao Yunduan had no choice but to accompany this prince to various gatherings in the capital, enduring many more rounds of drinking. Chapter 1376. Liu Yan. The advantageous aspect of this was that people became increasingly wary of offending Xiao Yunduan. Prince of Qingdi, for his part, was quite interesting. He even attempted to pay a visit to Xiao Yunduan, but Xiao Yunduan firmly declined the offer. Are you serious? After all, Prince of Qingdi held a sensitive position as the Prince of Qingdi and was a confidant of the Crown Prince. Accompanying the Prince of Qingdi to the capital for official business was one thing, but allowing him into his home as a guest involved a personal relationship. Becoming personal friends with a prince? What intentions did he have and what were the Crown Prince's plans? Xiao Yunduan, naturally, would not entangle himself in such matters that could potentially give others an opportunity to exploit and create issues. Moreover, if Prince of Qingdi were to visit as a guest, Xiao Yunduan's wife would have to cook for him. Xiao Yunduan couldn't bear the thought of that. He was also concerned that Prince of Qingdi might develop a penchant for free meals. After all, his wife's cooking was exceptional. Following the minor Lunar New Year, this year's weather was exceptionally favorable. The snow had ceased and temperatures had even risen slightly, sparking the citizens of the capital's enthusiasm. Agricultural work in the fields and farms had long been suspended. Songshi had returned to the Qiao residence, and along with Qin Yin he was busily accompanying the two masters on shopping trips and to deliver New Year's gifts. Of course, he also received numerous silver rewards. On the 27th day of the 12th lunar month, with all offices closed, Xiao Yunduan had some free time and stayed home with Qiao Xian. They took advantage of the pleasant weather to venture out of the city and inspect their farm. However, upon their return home, as Xiao Yunduan assisted Qiao Xian out of the wagon, a timid voice called out from behind them. "Second Miss, Second Master." Both Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan were taken aback. It had been a long time since they had heard these titles, so they momentarily spaced out. Qiao Xian felt that the voice sounded familiar, but she couldn't immediately place it. Turning around, they saw a maidservant wearing a coarse, faded cotton robe. She trembled as she stood not far away, her face pale, and her hair somewhat disheveled. She appeared apprehensive, perhaps due to the cold weather. The maidservant mustered her courage and approached, then knelt down to kowtow. "Second Miss, I am Liu Yan. Second Miss, do you still remember me?" "It's you." Recognition lit up in Qiao Xian's eyes. "What are you doing here?" Xiao Yunduan frowned, casting a sharp glance at Liu Yan. The Qiao family had tried to exert control over them through their seniority, but they couldn't gain the upper hand. Qiao Hongxi had even lost his official position and left the capital alone. A series of family troubles had befallen Qiao Wei and Qiao Ko. Third lady of the Qiao family was filled with anger and resentment, but she was powerless to change anything. The other two branches of the Qiao family had become more cautious and dared not entertain any ulterior motives, knowing that their actions could potentially jeopardize old Master Qiao's position. As Xiao Yunduan gained prominence, the first and second branches of the Qiao family regretted their actions. In their frustration, they directed their anger towards the third branch of the family, causing difficulties for the third master and third lady of the Qiao family. The third section of the Qiao family was enduring a difficult period. Third Old Master Qiao had long regretted his decision. If he had known the outcome, he might have remained a local official. What had led him to expend so much effort and resources to return to the capital? But none of this had any direct bearing on Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan. When the Qiao family had faded from their lives, they had simply moved on. Chapter 1377. What's the matter? Speak. Unexpectedly, Liu Yan appeared suddenly. Sensing Qiao Xian's somber mood, Liu Yan hastily spoke up. "Second Miss, I've come with urgent news. I assure you it's of utmost importance and I wouldn't deceive you." Qiao Xian exchanged a glance with Xiao Yunduan. Xiao Yunduan harbored no fear of the Qiao family, but he understood the delicate political game they were part of. The Qiao family could be a valuable pawn, and he had to tread carefully. With Liu Yan's presence, it seemed prudent to at least hear her out, even if belief remained a separate issue. "This isn't the appropriate place for discussion. Let her inside," Xiao Xian said. "Come in," Xiao Xian nodded, addressing Liu Yan. "Yes, Second Mississippi." "Thank you, Second Young Master," Liu Yan responded gratefully, bowing again before following them into the courtyard. As Liu Yan entered the courtyard, her eyes wandered, taking in the surroundings. Though not expansive, the space was immaculately maintained. Sweet osmanthus, pomegranate and magnolia trees flourished, while meticulously pruned flowers and shrubs added to the charm. One could envision the courtyard's vibrant beauty in the spring. The small yard exuded a warmth and tranquility that the otherwise lifeless Qiao family lacked. Liu Yan couldn't help but steal glances at the second miss and her husband as they walked hand in hand. The pair stood tall and slender, exuding relaxed elegance. They donned cloaks in subtle rose-red and navy-green hues, crafted from exquisite brocade. Hidden within were delicate floral patterns, a testament to understated refinement. Their deerskin boots were finely made, devoid of any traces of their humble past. Liu Yan found herself lost in thought, silently lamenting how drastically things had changed. The old master, his wife, the elder miss, and all the mansion's servants, herself included, could never have imagined that such a short time had brought about such monumental transformations. The old master and his wife were now in dire straits, having fallen into a wretched state. The elder miss, once so proud of her marriage, now faced its ruin and the prospect of staying at home indefinitely, struggling to find a suitable match. Concubine Du dared not show her face when entering the hall, yet Madame still sought opportunities to humiliate her. Meanwhile, the third Miss, who had meddled in the elder Miss' personal affairs, had met a bitter end. She had humiliated herself and was relegated to being a mere concubine in the household, with people believing she'd remain there until her demise. In stark contrast, the second Miss and the second young master, initially disregarded by Madame and the elder Miss, had ascended to affluence and prominence. Inside the house, a Kong bed provided warmth throughout the day, and a large covered charcoal basin burned on the floor, offering a soothing ambience that relaxed their stiff bodies upon entering. Liu Yan couldn't help but release an involuntary sigh and finally shifted her stiffened feet. Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan proceeded to the bedroom to change their attire. Li Xia glanced at Liu Yan but noticed her hesitation and remained silent. After changing, the two returned to the brick bed, where Li Qiao promptly served hot tea. Qiao Xian beckoned Liu Yan closer. "What's the matter? Speak up." Xiao Yunduan shot him a pointed look, causing Liu Yan to shudder involuntarily. The Qiao family situation had deteriorated significantly, having not only lost a substantial number of servants but also grown lax in their security measures. It wouldn't have been challenging for an outsider to infiltrate the mansion and manipulate matters with a bribe or two. This revelation deeply unsettled Liu Yan, leaving her feeling extremely uneasy. She realized that if Concubine Du had indeed taken such actions, it could spell trouble for her, as she was responsible for serving Aunt Zhao. After careful consideration, she made the discreet decision to approach Qiao Xian with this information. Qiao Xian's heart raced as she clenched her teeth in response to the sinister plot unfolding before them. What a malicious scheme it was. Despite its apparent simplicity, if it succeeded, it could result in significant trouble for them both. Would Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan extend their support to Concubine Du and Xiao Ko? Absolutely not. Chapter 1379. Save me from the Qiao family. They were under no obligation to assist Qiao Xian. Not only had they refrained from aiding Qiao Xian, but they had also gone out of their way to curry favor with Third Lady and Qiao Wei. Particularly Qiao Ko, who acted as Qiao Wei's confidant and strategist, had provided Qiao Wei with numerous ideas to demean and belittle Qiao Xian. Their misfortune was entirely self-inflicted. Qiao Xian had already been remarkably lenient by merely observing their predicaments without intervening. Assisting them was an unimaginable prospect. If Concubine Du were to actually take her own life in front of the Xiao family residence after being refused, it would undoubtedly trigger an outcry, potentially branding them as heartless and callous individuals. In such a dire circumstance, no matter how innocent they might be, blame would inevitably fall upon them. Furthermore, given the long-standing enmity between the two families, it wouldn't be unreasonable for others to assume that Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan harbored ill intentions towards Concubine Du. Many would readily believe it. I speak the truth. I would never deceive Lord Xiao and Madame Xiao. Liu Yan asserted earnestly. Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan exchanged glances, their anger still simmering but not overwhelming their senses. They contemplated the possibility that Liu Yan's words might hold some truth, but they also recognized it as merely one potential scenario. Liu Yan served the Qiao family, and her servitude was under the dominion of Third Madame Qiao. There was no way to ascertain whether she had acted independently or if she was a pawn manipulated by the Qiao family to set a trap. It was widely known that the emperor strongly disapproved of disturbances during the new year. The individuals who had come to the Xiao Yunduan residence seeking assistance had already taken a considerable risk. After a moment of reflection, Qiao Xian spoke in a composed tone. Whether this is true or not, time will reveal the reality. Your kindness in coming here is appreciated. However, it's getting late, and it's best for you to return home now to avoid any trouble. Li Xia, give her with 50 taels of silver. Of course, madam. Liu Yan's anxiety reached a breaking point as she knelt and implored, Madame Xiao, I don't want the money. I beg you, could you please help me leave the Qiao family? I'll be devoted to serving Madame Xiao and will never betray you. I can't endure staying in the Qiao family any longer. Please, I beseech you, Madame Xiao. Xiao Yunduan responded with cold detachment. We have no shortage of servants, and even if we did, we would not consider anyone from the Qiao family. Do not bring this up again. Li Xia, fetch 200 taels of silver, enough for her to secure her freedom and depart from the Qiao family. But sir, Liu Yan began. Li Qiao, escort her out, Xiao Yunduan commanded. No, Lord Xiao, please take me in. Madam Xiao, have mercy. Liu Yan pleaded, her terror and desperation evident as tears streamed down her face. She cried and begged relentlessly. Li Xia and Li Qiao struggled to move her due to her emotional state. Qiao Xian, growing increasingly irritated, snapped, Enough. You're being insufferable. Don't assume you can make demands just because you've come here with information about us. We have no obligation to grant your request. We want to involve ourselves further with the Qiao family, and you're a part of them. If word gets out, it won't reflect well on us. Who knows what people will say? Liu Yan hastily proposed, Madam, I can return to Shouting Village. I promise not to leave before I reach Shouting Village. I won't cause any trouble for you. When you have the opportunity, please send me back to Shouting Village. I can serve old Madam Xiao. Please, Madam. Tears welled in Liu Yan's eyes, and though she wished to cry, fear kept her from doing so. She trembled and couldn't help but whimper. Xiao Yunduan pondered for a moment before responding, It appears to be true. Concubine Du and Qiao Ko had exhibited such audacity as to conspire against Qiao Wei's family right in front of Third Lady Qiao. Qiao Wei hadn't even entered into discussions about marriage yet. Thus, her resentment toward them was unsurprising. Qiao Ko was now part of the Ning family, rendering her beyond the reach of the Qiao family's third lady. It wasn't difficult to imagine the dire straits Concubine Du must be facing within the Qiao family, certainly worse than death. Handling third Madame Qiao and Qiao Wei was no easy feat if they could extend assistance to Qiao Ko. Concubine Du, who had likely been pushed to the brink of despair, would probably accept. Liu Yan's demeanor suggested that she was genuinely anxious and not manipulating the situation. If she had been inclined to lie, she could have easily achieved her goal by requesting a favor and receiving a substantial sum of money from Qiao Xian, then departing contentedly. Instead, her anxiety had led her to beg them and express a willingness to return to Shouting Village to serve old Madame Xiao. Chapter 1381, Really Here. Qiao Xian chuckled, saying, I agree. Let's wait and see. Xiao Yunduan nodded in agreement. On the eve of the Lunar New Year, Concubine Du would inevitably come to plead for mercy. If it turns out to be true, Liu Yan has presented us with a significant opportunity. We should retrieve her indenture. If she's willing, we can arrange for her to leave the capital and provide her with 200 taels of silver as a dowry to secure a proper marriage. They didn't need to seek out wealthy families, but they would certainly avoid placing her with an unsuitable one. As long as she was willing to lead a quiet and obedient life, finding a family that offered stability wouldn't be too challenging. They couldn't provide too much silver, as having an excessive amount could attract unnecessary trouble for a smaller family. With 200 taels, she could construct a respectable green brick tiled house, acquire over 10 mues of land, and still have a significant sum set aside for emergencies. With diligence, her life would be comfortable. Afterward, they could all go their separate ways with no need for further entanglement. Xiao Yunduan smiled and commented, That sounds like a great plan. If she has any sense, she'll realize it's the best outcome for her. With their decision made, they eagerly awaited New Year's Eve. In the early morning, spring couplets, door guardians, window decorations, red lanterns and firecrackers adorned the area. Every household in the alley brimmed with festive cheer and activity. Children ran about with exuberance, undeterred by the cold weather, adding to the vibrant ambience of the already spirited New Year's celebration. Children held a particular fondness for the holiday. They donned the new clothes they had eagerly preserved and pocketed snacks they couldn't bear to eat at home. Most importantly, they knew that on this special day, no matter what mischief they got up to, the adults wouldn't scold them. Such leniency was a rare treat. Inside their mansion, Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan busied themselves with New Year preparations. After pasting the couplets, they entered the house. The house was as warm as spring and the Kong bed was warm. The two large braziers in the house were also burning vigorously. The daffodils, crabapples and orchids had long bloomed. There were also emerald green calamus, bamboo and devil's ivy, adding a touch of bright color to the house. The fragrance of the flowers was slightly intoxicating because of the warmth. The evening's menu had been decided upon a few days prior and preparations were well underway. The large seafood soup had simmered on the stove, perfectly timed for the evening feast. Among the planned dishes were mushroom-stewed chicken, braised venison, stir-fried mutton with green onions, braised carp, chili-infused stir-fried meat, sautéed winter bamboo shoots, and sour and spicy cabbage to complete the auspicious number. Around 10:30 a.m., a series of knocks echoed at the yard's entrance. Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan exchanged knowing glances, surmising that their expected guests had arrived. "Second miss. Second young master. Please open the door. Open the door, I implore you." Concubine Du's voice carried a sharp, anguished tone, almost resembling a cry. It was truly distressing to hear. Fortunately it was daytime. Had this occurred at night, one might have believed the gates of the netherworld had swung open, unleashing a tormented spirit from the depths of hell. "You are right," Qiao Xian remarked with a wry smile to Xiao Yunduan. "Let's go out and see." "Indeed we must," Xiao Yunduan agreed. The two of them led the way with Li Xia, Li Qiao, Songshi, and Qingyan trailing behind as they proceeded to open the door. As it was New Year's Eve, most families were at home. Upon hearing Concubine Du's cries, a crowd had gathered to witness the unfolding spectacle. They encircled Concubine Du, engaging in hushed discussions amongst themselves. Chapter 1382, No Loss. Xiao Yunduan surveyed the crowd and noticed several unfamiliar faces brimming with curiosity, seemingly reveling in the spectacle. They chatted animatedly with those around them, suggesting this was a carefully orchestrated performance. These unfamiliar faces, enthusiastically fanning the flames and spreading gossip, were likely individuals sent to instigate and sow discord. Xiao Yunduan understood the situation all too well. The Crown Prince had recently faced unjust accusations before the new year, and the fourth prince was still riding high in popularity. Regardless of his personal inclinations, he wouldn't dare to confront the Crown Prince head-on. Even if he was unaware of Xiao Yunduan's involvement in the matter, Xiao Yunduan had no familial ties within this area, and a prior rift had existed between them. It was sufficient for the fourth prince to vent his frustrations on Xiao Yunduan. Furthermore, having such a useful pawn within the Qiao family meant there was no need for him to take direct action. He simply needed to bribe a few troublemakers to stir the pot, incite the crowd and fuel the rumors. Why wouldn't he employ such tactics? After all, even if it failed he wouldn't bear any consequences. When Concubine Du spotted Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan, she abruptly halted her words at her eyes widening, and her mouth falling agape as she gazed at them in disbelief. It wasn't entirely her fault for being so dense. It had been a considerable amount of time since their last encounter, and this pair of remarkably handsome and poised individuals were none other than Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan, the figures from the village. A profound wave of resentment and envy surged within her. How contemptible! What right did they have? Why did she and her daughter endure endless suffering while Qiao Xian lived a life of comfort? Qiao Xian, this humble girl, couldn't possibly compare to her own daughter. She should be the one enjoying such good fortune. Regret welled up within her as she couldn't help but lament what might have been. If only her daughter had married Xiao Yunduan, she could have been the esteemed lady of the house, and even she would have reaped the benefits. However, the reality was far from her wishes. Incensed, Concubine Du shot an accusatory glare at Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan, intensifying her cries. "Second miss, second master, I implore you to save third miss. Second miss, when you resided in the pavilion, third miss and I ensured your well-being. During winter we secretly provided you with warm clothing, charcoal, hot meals and rice. How could you endure such meager fare in the scorching summer? Third miss would frequently send servants to deliver your own meals in secret. Whenever you fell ill, it was always I who covertly arranged for a physician to prepare medicine for you. Wu's second miss, have you forgotten? At first I hesitated to burden second miss, but third miss suffering is beyond measure. Despite my lowly status, I am still her biological mother. How could I bear to see her in such agony? I beseech second miss to save third Mississippi. Please just utter a word and third miss situation will greatly improve. No matter what you ask of me, I will agree to it. I only beg you to rescue third miss. I will kowtow to you. I will kowtow to young master. I beg of you." Concubine Du appeared frail and emaciated, with most of her hair turned white. She wore tattered clothing and her complexion had become sallow. She appeared so fragile that a gust of wind could easily sweep her away. Chapter 1383, Concubine Does Ideas. Her cries were heart-wrenching, her pleas desperate, evoking profound sympathy from those who witnessed and heard her anguish. Such a pitiable sight. The crowd of onlookers engaged in spirited discussions. Of course, they were unfamiliar with Concubine Does' identity. Of course, she had no knowledge of what Concubine Du was referring to. In this moment, the troublemakers and conniving elderly women dispersed among the crowd were proving quite effective. When others inquired out of curiosity, they took the opportunity to provide explanations, all heavily biased in favor of Concubine Du. Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan exchanged a glance, a sense of frustration washing over them. Qiao Xian remained silent. There was no point in arguing. Concubine Du's pitiful appearance had clearly garnered sympathy from everyone, delivered with such heartfelt and tearful sincerity. Heshan County was distant from the capital, and the events at the county office remained shrouded in mystery. Qiao Xian lacked concrete evidence. Concubine Du had successfully cast doubt upon her. To refute these claims would be futile as no one would believe her. It would only appear ungrateful. Qiao, assist Concubine Du to her feet, Qiao Xian uttered slowly. I prefer to resolve matters amicably rather than engage in melodrama. Yes, madam. Qiao and Songshi were well aware of the past events. Witnessing Concubine Du's distortions of truth, their anger surged. Second Miss, please extend your aid to 3rd Mississippi. Please, Concubine Du sobbed uncontrollably. Despite her reluctance, Concubine Du found herself unable to resist the determined efforts of Xia and Qiao, who, with surprising strength, forcibly lifted her to her feet from both sides. Don't cry, Concubine Du, Qiao Xian implored. Concubine Du's sobs only grew louder. Please, 2nd Miss. Xia raised her voice. Concubine Du. It's New Year's and you can speak your mind freely. Why cry in front of our old master and madam? I can't help but wonder if you were really as virtuous as you claim to be. Concubine Du responded in a hushed tone. I didn't mean to. I'm just concerned about 3rd Miss. But you're here to resolve the matter, aren't you? Qiao Xian interjected. Your excessive crying doesn't seem appropriate, does it? Inwardly cursing, Concubine Du lowered her head and wiped away her tears, attempting to stifle her sobs. 2nd Miss, you are absolutely right. It's my fault. I shouldn't have distressed 2nd Miss. Qiao Xian felt utterly repulsed. An elderly woman among the onlookers exclaimed, isn't this a bit too heartless? As a biological mother, she adores her daughter and isn't even allowed to shed tears? Has she forgotten the kindness she received in the past after achieving some success? That's right. I genuinely pity this concubine. That's correct. Mother and daughter share a deep bond. It's natural for her to shed tears. Xiao Yunduan cast a discreet glance at someone in the crowd. The individual nodded subtly. Shortly afterward, someone targeted the elderly woman, pulling her away without explanation. What are you doing? What's going on? Xiao Yunduan had limited manpower at his disposal, but the East Palace had a significant number of people. Concerned that a major incident might occur on this day, Xiao Yunduan had sought assistance from the Crown Prince in advance. Earlier that morning, a contingent of Eastern Palace guards had donned disguises and had been discreetly patrolling the vicinity. Not everyone in the crowd immediately converged on the scene. The opposing faction was not the sole group present among the onlookers. Chapter 1384, Fighting for Injustice. Qiao Xian sneered, What's the matter? I'm engaged in a serious conversation with Concubine Du here. What's your agenda? Who sent you? What are you up to? The elderly woman was taken aback. She straightened her posture and retorted with confidence, What nonsense are you spouting? I don't understand. I was merely passing by, observing the commotion. Is there something wrong with speaking out against injustice and sharing a few words of truth? Are you suggesting that you're the only one entitled to express yourself? Oh, the state of this world. Qiao Xian responded icily, No one's stopping you from voicing your opinions, but if someone intends to cause trouble, they want to escape consequences easily. You don't strike me as a local resident. Where are you from? Where's your home? What's your purpose here on New Year's Eve and why the sudden concern for fairness? The elderly woman became increasingly flustered. She hadn't anticipated Qiao Xian's relentless interrogation. Answering these questions would surely reveal her true intentions. Growing more flustered, the elderly woman retorted, Why should it matter where I'm from or what I'm up to? Am I not allowed to come and go freely? Oh my madam, you're quite the tyrant." Some of the neighbors didn't have the warmest feelings towards Qiao Xian, but they had generally amicable relationships with her and her husband. Qiao Xian's probing questions made it clear that something was amiss. "You're right, Madam Xiao. This woman doesn't seem familiar, and her presence here on New Year's Eve is indeed suspicious." "Yes, could there be some sort of ulterior motive? At any rate, this elderly woman has a shifty look about her. She doesn't strike me as a well-intentioned person." "I concur. Second Miss, please come to Third Miss aid." "Second Miss, consider our past interactions and help Third Mississippi. We're prepared to assist in any way." Moved by this, Concubine Du once again pleaded tearfully on the verge of kneeling, but Li Xiao and Li Qiao intervened swiftly to prevent her from doing so. Xiao Yunduan spoke up, "Since Concubine Du has requested it, let's discuss this matter openly. Songsher, please enlighten us on Miss Qiao's situation." "Yes, old master," Songsher replied obediently. She had been waiting for the Qiao family matter to be resolved, and now she began recounting the events surrounding Qiao Kou's involvement in taking Qiao Wei away. She carefully avoided using the word snatch, as she lacked concrete evidence. Only the Qiao family and the Ning family were privy to the truth. Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan had made inquiries, but it wasn't common knowledge. However, when it was revealed that the eldest miss of the Qiao family, the third daughter, had been married to Miss Qiao, the audience exchanged knowing glances. There was very little left to misunderstand. Concubine Du, overwhelmed by anger and distress, began to weep, exclaiming, "No! No!" Third Miss was framed. It was Elder Miss who disapproved of this marriage and schemed against Third Mississippi. She's innocent, or I wouldn't have implored Second Miss. I find that hard to believe. How could a concubine's daughter dare to— Wait, what are you doing? A ruffian tried to support Concubine Du, but before he could complete his sentence, two disguised guards promptly dragged him out. "Behave yourself," one guard scolded. "And what about you? You're not a local, are you? Where did you come from? Are you merely passing through, championing justice?" The hooligan was left speechless as the neighbors erupted into laughter. Now, all eyes were fixed on Concubine Du with even greater intensity. Chapter 1385. Lord Xiao is too amazing. Initially, they had placed 99% trust in her account. When the elderly woman was apprehended, their faith dropped to 70%. Now their confidence in her narrative had dwindled to less than 30%. Was it mere coincidence? A happenstance passerby? A champion of justice? In their minds, such coincidences simply didn't exist. The hooligan sneered, "And who might you two be? Are you targeting me specifically?" Xiao Yunduan responded with composure, "Certainly, I invited him. I had heard that there might be trouble today, so I took precautions. I didn't anticipate running into you before the troublemaker showed up." The ruffian found himself at a loss for words. The elderly woman, too, appeared somewhat dumbfounded. The other ruffians and elderly women in the crowd discreetly adjusted their expressions. Who would dare make a move now? How many more individuals might be hidden among them? Lord Xiao had proven himself formidable. Concubine Du, although fuming, had a growing suspicion that Xiao Yunduan's remarks were directed at her. Nevertheless, having come this far, she had no intentions of retreating. So what if they had foreknowledge of her intentions to disrupt the event? Her motives extended beyond mere disruption. Madam and the eldest miss had no intentions of granting her an easy escape. Her life had already been filled with torment, with no glimmer of hope. If sacrificing her meager existence could aid her daughter, she was more than willing to do so. Concubine Du made a resolute decision and sobbed, "Second Miss, I'm speaking the truth. Please, Second Miss, don't believe the rumors. You're unjustly accusing Third Miss. Old Master and Madam favor Elder Miss above all, and Third Miss is just the daughter of a concubine. How could she ever compete with them? I was initially afraid to challenge or voice my grievances, but Third Miss' suffering has become unbearable. I'm even willing to sacrifice my life to vindicate my innocence. I beseech Second Miss for help." With these words, Concubine Du managed to break free from Li Xiao and Li Qiao's grasp and rush toward the wall. Though Li Xiao and Li Qiao had been prepared, they had underestimated the desperation of someone willing to die. Concubine Du eluded their grasp. A collective gasp of shock rippled through the crowd. Qiao Xian's expression shifted drastically. Thankfully, Sun Bai acted with lightning speed, kicking Concubine Du aside. Concubine Du let out a pained groan as she tumbled to the ground. Li Xiao and Li Qiao, who were petrified with fear, rushed forward and held her firmly, their faces dripping with cold sweat, their impulse being to shake some sense into Concubine do this troublemaker. Qiao Xian breathed a sigh of relief, her palms damp with perspiration. Xiao Yunduan held her hands and whispered reassuringly, "Don't fret." He couldn't afford to underestimate the fourth prince. Chapter 1386. Maybe punishment, you concocted those words entirely on your own. Listen to yourself, don't make a mockery of your own words. You're well aware of what you and your mother put me through in the past. Don't think you can spew baseless accusations with impunity. You claim to have done me a favor? What a laughable notion. Concubine Du, her voice trembling with tears, said, "Second Miss is no longer the person she used to be. If you refuse to acknowledge it, I have nothing more to say." "Is that so?" Xiao Yunduan responded icily. "Why should my wife admit to fabrications? My wife is compassionate and she used to overlook the past, but you've pushed her too far. You're twisting the truth and attempting to shift blame. Since you're intent on pushing this to the brink, I'll grant your wish." At Xiao Yunduan's command, the undercover guards hidden among the crowd acted as one, swiftly apprehending the suspicious individuals causing a commotion. Naturally, those individuals vehemently denied any involvement, struggling and shouting in protest. "Let go of me. What's going on? What's going on? Help. We're being unjustly treated." "Silence." The lead guard, without waiting for Xiao Yunduan's instruction, slapped the nearest hooligan across the face and sneered, "Keep hollering and we'll send you straight to the Heavenly Mansion office." The hooligans fell silent instinctively, no longer daring to resist or shout out. If they were truly handed over to the authorities, their backgrounds would be exposed, and they might face severe consequences. "Oh!" A neighbor within the crowd exclaimed in astonishment, pointing at someone and whispering, "I know that person. He's from West 13th Street, they all call him Dog 3. "What's he doing here?" another person murmured. "And that one, see the scar on the left side of his face. Looks like a lowlife from Mixed Horse City. These individuals are no reputable citizens. What a stroke of luck. Why would these people be here to witness the commotion? There's no such thing as luck. Someone must have summoned them here." Xiao Yunduan cast a stern gaze at the apprehended individuals. "Are you going to confess, or should I send you to the Heavenly Mansion?" In response, the individuals exchanged uneasy glances, and one of them immediately cried out, "Lord Xiao, I beg for clemency. I'm just a humble person. I would never dare to create trouble for Lord Xiao. Someone offered me 20 taels of silver and asked me to assist this woman in causing a ruckus. I deeply regret my greed. I still have the money, I'd rather return it. Please spare my life, Lord Xiao." Once one person started, the rest quickly followed suit, all pleading for mercy. Their stories were similar, but the sums of silver were not consistent. Some had been offered 20 taels, others 30, and some a mere 10. It was their own greed that had lured them into this predicament. What led them to defy the officials of the imperial court and the crown prince was the promise of quick riches. They typically engaged in all sorts of illicit activities but were well aware of their place within the capital. They knew better than to provoke those they shouldn't cross. Originally, they had believed they could make a substantial profit while remaining hidden in the crowd, inciting trouble without ever showing their faces. It seemed like a cost-effective scheme. However, they hadn't anticipated getting apprehended and exposed. It was a humiliating predicament. Out of the 7 individuals captured, 3 had managed to evade capture, having hidden themselves well. However, these 7 people were enough to explain the problem. He didn't even inquire about who had employed them for this scheme. It was highly unlikely that the fourth prince would leave any trace for him to uncover. These individuals probably had no information about the true orchestrator and wouldn't be able to identify them. Nonetheless, he couldn't simply release them without consequence. That would be too lenient and allow them to underestimate him. Xiao Yunduan compelled them to surrender the money they'd received and distributed it as a reward to the East Palace guards. He issued threats and reprimands, forcing them to swear they'd never attempt such actions again before finally releasing them. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1388, Currying Favor. After expressing their gratitude to the neighbors for their impartiality, Xiao Yunduan and Qiao Xian escorted Concubine Du back to the Qiao family residence. The Qiao family's abode was in a state of disrepair, with no noticeable security measures in place. Thus, no one noticed Concubine Du leaving the premises. The sight of her return took Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan by surprise. Upon hearing that Lord Qiao and Madame Qiao had arrived, Third Old Master Qiao was so taken aback that he initially believed they had come to celebrate the new year. To his astonishment, before he could even muster a smile, he beheld Concubine Du, bound and gagged. His welcoming words were caught in his throat, his shock and anger palpable as he stuttered, What's happening here?" Third Mrs. Qiao sneered, "Old Master, can't you see it? Lord Qiao and Madame Qiao wield immense power. The Qiao family is but an eyesore to them, and they can simply take whatever they desire." Madame Lady Qiao shot a piercing glare at Qiao Xian, as if trying to retrieve what Qiao Xian had supposedly stolen from the Qiao family. She was about to unleash a tirade when Xiao Yunduan directed a meaningful look at the East Palace guards and suggested, "Why not allow them to explain the situation so that no one can accuse us of bullying you?" The East Palace guards represented the Crown Prince of the East Palace, and openly challenging them was not a proposition anyone would dare undertake. Madame Lady Qiao was taken aback and instinctively held her tongue. In the end, she didn't relinquish her hope that the Qiao family might one day reclaim its former glory. Her eldest and third sons were both officials of the imperial court, and her grandson aspired to pass the imperial examination and attain an official position. She couldn't risk needlessly offending the East Palace. Though they were merely guards of the East Palace, they were not individuals the Qiao family could easily provoke. On the contrary, it was in their best interest to seek favor with them. Madame Lady Qiao put on a strange smile. "Ah, it's the East Palace guards. First, second, third, please have a seat in the room and enjoy some tea." The Qiao brothers were about to agree when Sun Bai arched an eyebrow. "No need, well, keep it brief." He had little patience for dealing with the Qiao family. Gesturing toward Concubine Du, he recounted the events that had unfolded. A wave of shock swept through the entire Qiao family. Third Old Master Qiao glared at Concubine Du and hastily disavowed any involvement, stating, "I had nothing to do with this. I had no idea that this woman was so audacious." Madame Lady Qiao sneered at Qiao Xian. "You owe a debt of gratitude to Concubine Du, and this is how you treat your benefactor? You're truly ruthless." Qiao Xian retorted sharply, "If you're not senile, don't speak without thinking. Are you ignorant of what kind of person Concubine Du is? Are you unaware of the nature of Qiao Ko? Do you honestly believe that she and her mother will treat me kindly? She bribed a hooligan to create chaos on New Year's Eve and even tried to take her own life in front of my residence to intimidate me. She may be a devoted mother, but that has nothing to do with me. She's out to harm me. If you're so insistent, why don't you visit the Heavenly Mansion office to clarify the situation? I won't tolerate being unjustly accused." Xiao Yunduan added coldly, "We've been exceedingly lenient, never resorting to force even when the odds were against you." Madame Lady Qiao sneered and was about to retaliate when Old Master Qiao cleared his throat, interrupting her. "Mother, please refrain from further comment." In her fit of anger, his mother might not have cared, but he couldn't permit her to behave recklessly. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1389, How Disgusting. Xiao Yunduan's remarks led Third Old Master Qiao to abandon any thoughts of exploiting the situation. Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan had refrained from seeking vengeance on the Qiao family, and if they were provoked to retaliate, it could jeopardize his position. Moreover, life for the Qiao family in the capital would become even more arduous. The Qiao family lacked the confidence to challenge Xiao Yunduan. Madame Lady Qiao glowered at Qiao Xian, her dissatisfaction palpable, but she had to yield to the wishes of her eldest son. She then directed her glare at Concubine Du once more. In her view, this inept woman didn't even know how to end her own life. If she had successfully taken her own life in front of Xiao Yunduan and Qiao Xian's residence, the Qiao family could have demanded justice on her behalf. But instead, she had survived, with someone capturing her and returning her home, causing immense embarrassment. Madame Lady Qiao wasn't concerned about Concubine Du's reputation. Her primary aim was to humiliate Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan. She suggested, "If this woman is so malicious, the Qiao family can't possibly shelter her any longer. Since she has offended Lord Xiao and Madame Xiao, please remove her from our premises. We will deal with Lord Xiao and Madame Xiao as we see fit. Her proposition was utterly repugnant. Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan couldn't simply take Concubine due with them. Doing so would only create more problems. Xiao Yunduan chose to disregard Madame Lady Qiao's words and turned to Third Old Master. Officer Qiao, I have a few inquiries for you. May I proceed? Hearing his former son-in-law address him as Officer Qiao, in such a detached and businesslike manner, Third Old Master Qiao's heart ached. A reprehensible individual had triumphed. A reprehensible individual had triumphed. He had not acted in this manner in the past. The East Palace guards fixed their gazes upon him, rendering it impossible for Third Master Qiao to disregard Xiao Yunduan. This situation needed resolution, as these individuals wouldn't depart otherwise. The longer the deadlock persisted, the more detrimental it would be. Furthermore, with their current predicament, they couldn't afford to slight Xiao Yunduan. Could he afford to flaunt his father-in-law's status in such circumstances? Reluctantly, Third Old Master Qiao walked over. Madame Lady Qiao signaled to her husband and her brother-in-law, and they followed her lead. However, Sun Bai reached out to halt them, stating, "Please wait. Lord Xiao didn't request your presence." The two old masters of the Qiao family seethed with anger. What did he mean by, "Lord Xiao didn't request your presence"? Who did he think he was? Though they muttered silently, they dared not provoke the East Palace entourage. All they could do was stop with a resentful expression. Yunduan, Officer Qiao, would you prefer to relocate somewhere else? Xiao Yunduan interrupted. What? Third Old Master Qiao was left dumbfounded. Xiao Yunduan cast a meaningful look in his direction and spoke slowly. Officer Qiao, if you're considering relocating somewhere else, I might be able to assist you. Third Old Master Qiao was immediately stirred by this proposition. Regrets had haunted him for a long time. Initially, he had harbored high hopes that his return to the capital would yield rapid advancements and a flourishing career. Little did he anticipate that, after squandering a considerable sum of money, he would only deteriorate further. Moreover, it appeared that he would never attain a higher position again in his lifetime. His mother, siblings, and in-laws held him accountable. Even though he hadn't been the one to sever all ties with Qiao Xian, they had initiated the estrangement. His children had become the subject of endless jests. He felt a deep sense of shame when mingling as a guest. How he yearned for the freedom to depart the capital. As a local government official, he held a position of leadership and could lead if you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1390. Hard to guard against Third Old Master Qiao was overjoyed and found himself developing a more favorable view of Xiao Yunduan. He spoke with a friendly smile. Yunduan, you still care for me. Xiao Yunduan responded, Officer Qiao, please just address me as Lord Xiao. Your words are quite misleading. Third Old Master Qiao had believed that Xiao Yunduan was aware of his struggles in the capital and had come to his aid. Even though Xiao Yunduan hadn't explicitly mentioned it, he sensed a degree of concern from his former son-in-law. Just as he was about to exchange a few more warm sentiments, a figurative bucket of ice-cold water was metaphorically dumped on him. Xiao Yunduan couldn't help but stifle a laugh at the expression of shock on Third Old Master Qiao's face. Where had he found the audacity to think that this was done for his benefit? Officer Qiao, please don't misinterpret my intentions. I simply believe that it would be advantageous for my wife and me if you were to depart the capital. With the third branch of the family relocated elsewhere, particularly Third Old Master Qiao, there would be no prior connections between the first branch of the family, the second branch of the family, and Qiao Xian. Since there was no familial bond, no one could manipulate the Qiao family to potentially cause them any distress. Xiao Yunduan was informed about the third lady of the Qiao family but remained uncertain whether she would resort to such extreme measures as concubine. You could never predict what would transpire next. Third Old Master Qiao seethed with anger and responded stiffly, Let me consider this. Xiao Yunduan didn't tolerate his dithering. Officer Qiao, you should contemplate it now. I won't wait for you if you take too long. Third Old Master Qiao was further incensed, torn between the desire to restore his dignity and the worry that he might not succeed. Ultimately, he couldn't resist the allure of such an opportunity and admitted somewhat begrudgingly, I suppose it's better to serve as a county magistrate and contribute to the imperial court. I can become a magistrate in either Shandong or Jiangnan. Xiao Yunduan glanced at him, her disbelief palpable. He truly had no reservations. Prefectures in Shandong and Jiangnan? He was genuinely bold. Only Fujian County Magistrate. Officer Qiao, do you accept? What? Third Old Master Qiao retorted indignantly, this is unreasonable. Xiao Yunduan replied, that's the only option available. Hearing these words, Third Old Master experienced a blend of anger and consolation. It wasn't that Xiao Yunduan had no intention of providing him with a more prestigious role or a better location, but he lacked the capability to do so himself. When he considered it carefully, no matter how much he spoke with the Crown Prince, he remained relatively young and inexperienced.